I will bring this committee meeting back to order. And I will ask Mr. Wilmarth to go forward with education resource block grant model comparisons. So.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Wilmarth, LSO, Senior School Finance Analyst. The purpose of this presentation, and it's meeting item number 06-01 in your meeting materials, is twofold. One, it's to kind of just go through the model components again. And it's also to assist in tomorrow's presentation of the bill. We don't intend tomorrow to walk line by line, page by page of the bill. That's really what this conversation is about, just to identify each of the components, what the differences are between current law and what is proposed in the bill. I've asked Dr. Pikus and his team to join me because I think they may be able to assist in some of the questions in terms of if there's any inquiries on, what did the PJ panels indicate, or if there's something I can't answer, they're here to back me up. Additionally, this will touch on some of the other policy considerations that are outside of the block grant, but they've also heard feedback on those, such as cash reserves, modifying the payment schedules for special education and so forth. And so again, those are embedded within your bill tomorrow. So again, we're going to touch on them this afternoon. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I also think if it's okay with you, it's probably best to take testimony that would be on the bill as well after my presentation.
And that was exactly what I was going to do. I was going to open, whenever you finish, I was going to have public comment on any issue that the folks would like to comment on. So I know some of them have to leave today and won't be here tomorrow. Also, tomorrow is an extremely busy day getting through the bill itself. So I do want to provide that public testimony time. So, yep.
Great. And with that, Mr. Chairman, there isn't an accompanying memo with this item 6-02. I don't intend to go through that. What it does, though, is it outlines model components and the estimated FTEs and costs associated with those by current law, select committee, and the evidence-based model. I don't intend to touch on that in detail on each of the components. But if you do have questions, I'm happy to take those. So with that, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated, this presentation will touch on the model components and the differences between the components of the block grant model and current law. We will also touch on other policy implications contained in the bill, and I'll go through those after the components and other areas that the committee intends to study next interim. I think Chairman Heiner spoke to that earlier this morning. So from the outset on slide 3, I've outlined where are the differences. Recall in October, your base motion was to forward the evidence-based model. And then you modified that in various ways. And so this slide outlines where those differences are. The first is in the student counts. I think you've heard that from prior testimony. The select committee has forwarded the student count to be based on the prior school year's average daily membership. Under current law, it's the greater of the 3-year average or the prior year. The other difference or the next difference that the committee forwarded was this daily substitute teacher salary. The evidence-based model recommends $261 per day, and the committee settled on $185 per day, both of which are going to be adjusted by the regional cost adjustment, which is different than current law. The substitute daily salary is not adjusted by current law. Mr. Chairman, I'll pause.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, the next area that the committee directed is actually to the district's benefit from the evidence-based model, which is a weight of 34% for the CTE students, compared to the recommended 20%. And I think Dr. Pike spoke to earlier his report from his team recommended a 20% weight. The committee had forwarded a 34% weight. The CTE supplies materials, again, this is a little bit of a benefit to the districts. It provides a minimum funding level equivalent to 2 times the per teacher amount for each of the schools that offer those CTE programs. And it retains what was adopted last year was a categorical grant. Next 2 items are areas that are going to be continue to be studied. The elementary counselor positions have not been embedded in the recommendations, nor have the nurses. But, and I'll skip the technology. I probably should have put the pupil support underneath the nurses. The committee forwarded its current policy on pupil support, which is the greater of 1 pupil support position for a prototypical school, versus the evidence-based model recommendation of 1 position for every 100 at-risk students. It's a minor difference in funding, but a little bit more funding in the district's way. Technology, the committee chose again to study this next interim as well. The recommendation has been $450 per student, subject to an external cost adjustment. The current proposal as retained under the bill draft is $250 per student, and it's not subject to an ECA, but again, studied next interim. And then finally, the at-risk and ELL student programs, the $50 for instructional materials for summer school and extended day and ELL student programs were not forwarded by the committee. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause. Those are the differences between the 2 models. I'll pause before I move on to the next. Okay, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the impact of the average daily membership, we're in a state of decline across the state in terms of student enrollment. And so the impact is far greater than it would be in an area of, or a time period of increase in enrollment. And so the policy implications of using just the prior year is an estimated model ADM decrease of approximately 2011 ADM statewide. And what I've done is provided a graphic that illustrates the model ADM, which is that red long dashed line, and then the lower line, the tanned color, is the prior ADM. You can see from 2007 to about 2017, we had a student enrollment growth happening. And so if the policy were to just use the prior year ADM in that case, the decrease in the model ADM wouldn't be as dramatic as it is in a time period of student decline. And so I just wanted to provide a graphical illustration on that. As I indicated in my opening remarks, the base motion from the committee was to adopt the EB model, or the evidence-based model. And so from a high level for next school year, fiscal year 27 or school year 2026, 2027, the select committee's recommendations on a statewide basis is to increase funding from current law, approximately 11.7 million, or just under a 1% increase. This would also have a decrease of approximately 705 model FTEs as forwarded by the select committee. Under the evidence-based models recommendations, the estimated increase in funding from current law would be approximately $100 million, or about a 7.5% increase, and a decrease of model generated FTEs of 122.7. Again, the ADM I spoke to is a decrease of about 2,000 students. In the evidence-based model, Dr. Pikus is also recommended, as the committee directed, to modify the funding of co-located schools. And let me just kind of explain what a co-located school is. It is a is a building that contains 2 or more schools as identified in the Department of Education's database with unique IDs that operate in that single building. Under current law, we aggregate those co-located schools for purposes of routine maintenance funding because the educational square footage is based upon the building, not on the school. So that has been extended to all elements of the model will be for a co-located school will be funded on a building basis as opposed to a unique school ID basis. Really, the impact of this in terms of the committee's motion and directives is school administration positions. There won't be as many school administrators allocated under this. And if the committee's going to move on the minimum teachers rather allocated at the highest school level, the impact on the minimum teachers being allocated at the grade band level is minimal. The committee's also directed, and I think Dr. Pike has spoke to this, we have resolved the cliff effect issues. And this is done through prorating down the minimum teachers for schools of 50 ADM or lower. But there's also benefits to the small schools at the 50 ADM mark in terms of under the current law, no other positions are being allocated below 50 ADM other than teachers and an assistant principal. So now a proportional amount of positions for instructional facilitators or tutors, librarians, secretaries, all those other non-teacher positions will be allocated on a proportional basis for those schools. So that smoothing effect from transitioning from 51 ADM to 50 or below is not impacted. And then Dr. Bikes spoke to the elementary prototype sizes modified from the current law. Salaries. This also, the recommendation embeds the recommended salaries from Dr. Stoddard. The directive was to provide the recommended salaries using the rebased hedonic wage index. And so that has been implemented in the model. Also, the policy consideration on salaries, and I think this was spoke to earlier, a superintendent's salaries and benefits shall not exceed 2.33 times or 233% of that of a district's actual average teacher salary and benefits. We are aware of a item in the bill that we just need to modify the percentage to 233%. Technical amendment will take care of. Mr. Chairman, I spoke to this earlier on just the teacher salaries, but on slide 7, we've identified the estimated model average salaries when you take into account all of the model FTEs that are generated and the salaries. And in this table, I've compared it to current law. One of the key aspects of this recalibration is we have added or eliminated different types of positions. And so that's occurred in the central office and librarian positions primarily. There are different types of central office administration and that are added, as well as librarian aides. There weren't any librarian aides prior or in the current model, and we'll get into that. But every position in the model will see an average increase or their average salary increase compared to current law. And it varies by position or type of job title. Mr. Chairman, health insurance, we just spoke to, I won't get into that, but again, the premise of this is for school year 2026-27, the model will generate health insurance just like it does now based upon the state's premium amounts and allocated through the block grant. School year 27-28 is where districts would be reimbursed for each employee that is participating in the state's health insurance plan, subject to the parameters of federal employees or those employees that aren't eligible to be reimbursed under the Department of Education's rules. Retirement also is to be reimbursed outside of the block grant. Currently, a portion of the retirement is to be reimbursed outside the block grant. This would take the full 15.191% reimbursed outside of the block grant. Currently, 12.69% is allocated through the block grant. And so this policy decision moves the full 15.191% outside of the block grant and pays on those actual salaries being paid to those employees actually hired by the districts. Within the block grant, it will fund Social Security and Medicare through its model allocations, as well as unemployment insurance and workers' compensation. That's no change. Before I get started on each of the components, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause for any questions from the committee.
Any questions? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Matt. So can you help me? I'm just trying to figure out what the process is for the health insurance change. So the school district has some number of FTEs that they've hired, and they report that to Department of Education, and then they get reimbursed the amount that they essentially will be paying EGI.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Yin, correct. So how my mind envisions, and I believe how we've written in the bill, is any employee who is reimbursed through the transportation or special education reimbursements, or is paid through block grant dollar funds, are to be reimbursed for their actual premium rates paid by the employer share to EGI. Policy call whether or not the committee wants to include food service program workers or not. Those are technically excluded out of the bill right now, because those are funded under a presumed self-funded category and through their enterprise fund, through their food service programs. There'd be a policy call, but it'd be on those actual employees enrolled into the state's employee group insurance plan, and the state would reimburse the districts for those actual employer premiums.
And Mr. Chairman, Matt, are those food service employees that are through the enterprise fund, are we requiring them to be with an EGI?
Mr. Chairman, if they want to take insurance, they would have to take the state employee group insurance. Otherwise, they could participate in their spouse's plan. They would not get reimbursed for that cost, but the district's plan would be the state's health insurance plan.
Just following up on that, we discussed a couple of other options, and I don't remember seeing it specifically in the bill draft. What's the reimbursement schedule that we ended up with for the EGI?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Office, I believe we put monthly.
Monthly, okay.
Because districts are required to pay a month ahead of those premiums. So a employee who is eligible to participate in July comes out of their June paycheck.
Okay, so it's a monthly reimbursement. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe that's the same way that retirement is written as well. All right, Mr. Chairman, I intend to go quick. This is, I think, the fourth time the committee's heard each of these components. Please pause me if you have any questions, but on the left-hand side, I've included each of the components, and I've identified the component number by the report from Dr. Pikus. So that's just, if you want to orient yourself to the component numbers, that's where those numbers come from. In the middle is the current law, and then on the right-hand side is the select committee. The red italicized bolded font. I don't know if Dr. Pikus can see the difference between the colors, but I tried to do the bold and the italicized. But that indicates a change. That indicates a change in the model component from current law. And so, for example, full day kindergarten, is the same font color, and so there's no changes to full day kindergarten. The committee is forwarding full day kindergarten. Elementary core class sizes, you can see that the K3 grades will have a change from 16 to 15, and grades 4 through 5 or 6 will have a change to 25 from 16. For secondary core classes, class sizes, the changes from 21 to 25. And then for elective and specialist teachers, the major changes for middle schools from a 33% allocation to a 20% allocation, and then a very minor, I would call technical allocation or technical correction to Dr. Picus's recommendation has been changed from 33% to a 33 1/3%. Additional CTE teachers, again, I've already spoke to this. The committee's changes to 34% of the students. Current law is 29%. Summer school and extended day, this is one area where you see the largest increase in terms of funding and allocation of teacher FTEs. Under current law, we allocate 0.6 FTE for every 120 at-risk students, with a minimum of a half teacher FTE per district. The committee has forwarded the evidence-based model recommendation, which is 1 FTE for every 120 at-risk students for summer school, and 1 FTE for extended day. So essentially it's 2 FTE for every 120 students or at-risk students, compared to the current law of 0.6 FTE.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Back on the additional CTE teachers, I think it's worth noting, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is the 29% existing law versus the 34%. The 34% looks like an increase in number of CTE teachers, but that's misleading. As I recall, it's exactly the same is the way that's calculated. It's just based on some other variables changing, and so we had to adjust the 29 to 34 to keep it equal. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chairman, in Summer Office, you are correct. I apologize for that. The divisor of that additional weight of the students now becomes 25 for the 9 through 12 class size, as opposed to the current class size of 21. And so you are correct. I believe the difference in FTE is approximately 0.03 teachers.
It's not a penny, but it's close.
And Mr. Chairman, the final on this slide, final component on this slide is ELL teachers. There is no change, current law and select committee's recommendations. Mr. Chairman, this next component, the minimum teachers, I think is worth a discussion. I think the committee's already brought this up this morning, and you've heard a lot of testimony. This is one of the more significant changes that have been forwarded. Minimum teachers under current law are allocated for elementary teachers a minimum of 6, middle schools 8, and high schools are 10. And that's for any school greater than 49 ADM. The model also provides a small school district adjustment for any district with 243 ADM or less, which ensures at least 1.2 teachers at each grade as soon as enrolled, 1.33 teachers for middle and high schools for each grade as soon as enrolled. The minimum teachers for these schools are provided on a grade band basis. So a school that encompasses a K-8 or a 6-12 or a K-12 could potentially generate 24 teachers if each grade band is greater than 50 ADM, or it would. The select committee's recommendation, which forwarded the evidence-based model recommendation of a minimum of 6 teachers at the elementary, which is the same, 7 at the middle school and 9 at the teachers, allocates that at the highest school level, meaning a K-12 school with more than 50 students generates 9 teachers as opposed to 24 teachers. That has impacted many of the small schools and districts in the state. I'll just leave it at that. The one change in this, it gets back to the cliff effect. The select committee's recommendation does solve that by prorating the number of minimum teachers at 50 and below. So there isn't a big difference in terms of teacher allocations below 50. It's just a proportional decrease, which solves that cliff effect. Under current law, if you have 50 students, you get 10 teachers in a high school. If you have 49, you get 1 teacher for every 7 students. That's been solved in this minimum teacher allocation. I think Sarah Office was the one who said pursue this. So it has been solved. It's a good change. Mr. Chairman, any questions on this? And if you want, Mr. Chairman, I can provide some statistics if we were to provide these minimums on a grade band level under the select committees, or I can wait.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that was what I was going to ask since we had that earlier conversation today about this. What information can you provide at this time about us shifting this a little bit so that it's on the grade band basis as was discussed instead of on the full school? That's my first question. My second is, do we need to do anything to conform that small school adjustment below 49 in that case so that it's appropriate? I think that still works itself out, but just making sure that we don't screw that up if we were to make the change of the co-located schools.
So, Mr. Chairman and Senator Office, big picture, if you were to allocate these minimum teachers at a grade band basis for any school that contains more than multiple or more than one grade band, it is an increase of approximately 206 teacher FTEs from your current position, which equates to about $21 million. 21 million. Additionally, if a grade band is below that 50 ADM, it won't generate that minimum, but it will generate a proportional. So it takes the same approach as a small school. It'll decrease the minimum teachers on a proportional basis. So if it's 45, it's a high school grade band, it will take that 9 teacher minimum and do a pro rata reduction from 9 rather than 1 to 7.
So, Mr. Chairman, then it's written in such a way that the grade bands would be prorated so that solves that problem appropriately.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Office, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next component on slide 11 is the instructional facilitators. This is again another area where the select committee's recommendations is more robust than current law. You can see under current law, 0.45 FTE are allocated for each prototypical size school. Under the committee's recommendations, 1.5 instructional coaches or facilitators are allocated for each prototypical size school with a minimum of 1 position per district. Core tutors and at-risk tutors, I combine these because under the current law, the allocation considers both of the at-risk and prototypical size school elements. Under current law, the approach is similar to pupil support, where a school gets the greater of its allocation on an ADM basis for each prototypical size school, one tutor for each prototypical size school, or 1 FTE for every 100 at-risk students. The select committee's recommendation, which adopts the evidence-based model's recommendation, provides 1 tutor position for every prototypical size school, plus 1 tutor or at-risk tutor for every 100 at-risk students. Again, this is a area where the select committee's recommendation provides much more funding for tutors. To try to think about this holistic and have a slide coming up. Yes, the committee's recommendations increases class sizes, but it also increases the number of tutors and instructional facilitators. That offsets part of that decrease in classroom teachers. And I don't know if Dr. Pikus wants to talk about, the transition of if you a classroom teacher to a tutor. You kind of shared some information yesterday on that.
Dr. Pikus, do you want to talk about this?
That article.
Oh, okay. Thank you, excuse me. Mr. Chair, members of the committee. There's an organization in Washington, D.C. that studies how schools allocate and spend their resources. And there was a one-page thing, the group's called Edunomics. And they had a thing that just had some sort of approaches that one could use to maintain tutors within the same staff that you had, and how you could think through who should be think of as tutors, and how you could adjust to some of them. That was helpful. That had many suggestions for flexibility, and I'm happy to share that with anybody who's interested in it. It wasn't my place to send it to all of you. That's your staff's job, not mine. But if anybody in the audience is interested and they send me an email, I'll be happy to forward it on. And Matt has it as well. So it's how do you creatively think about how to use the resources or the personnel resources in your school. It starts from the presumption that they're teachers and they're well-educated and they can adjust and move from being a teacher to a tutor or a teacher to a coach and all those sorts of things. And it's not that you have to get rid of teachers to hire coaches. You can use the same people.
Thank you, Dr. Bicus. And Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate, a teacher is allocated the same salary in the model as an instructional coach and a tutor. They receive the same salary within the model. The next change from current law for substitute teachers is 10 days as opposed to 8.75 days for teachers is allocated. That's 5.715% of the teacher positions allocated as opposed to current law, which is just 5%. And again, I kind of touched on the committee differed on the daily salary. They recommended 185 or forwarded 185 days adjusted by the regional cost adjustment. Mr. Chairman, next, counselors, nurses, and pupil support. This is an area where the committee is going to continue to study. The only change from current law is the elementary prototypical size school of 330 as opposed to 288. The next recommendation is supervisory aides, or the next component is supervisory aides. Two changes. One is the prototypical size school of an elementary changes from 288 to 330. And then at the high school, rather than 5 per 630 ADM, it's 3 per 630 high school ADM. Librarians is an area where the recommendations have changed in terms of allocation. Under current law, elementary librarians are allocated 1 for every 288. Under the proposed recommendation, there's kind of a under the select committee's recommendations, each of these librarians are on a pro rata basis. In the middle and high school, there's kind of a step where you get 1 at the minimum prototypical size school, and then it stays static until 630, and then it's prorated above 630. Under the select committee's recommendation, and which mirrors the evidence-based model, it's 1 for each prototypical size school, 330 for elementary, 315 for middle school, and 630 for high school. And then each district is resourced a minimum half position. Above those sizes, then additional librarian aides are allocated, 1 for every 330, 315, or 630 above those first prototypical size schools. The next element are the school administrators, principals, and assistant principals. The only change for elementary principals is the prototype size from 96 to 110. Above those 110, 105 prototypes, you just get 1 principal. And then under assistant principals, I would go back to the principals. Under current law, between 96 and 49, a principal position is prorated. Under the select committee's recommendation, which again mirrors the evidence-based model, below 110 elementary or below 105 middle and high school, an assistant principal salary is allocated. So there isn't that pro rata reduction. The only reduction is just in the salary level of an assistant principal and a principal. And then the allocation of assistant principals above the prototype levels remains the same. School site and secretarial staff. This is another area where there's been a change in the majority of the recommendations or components. The first is under current law, we allocate two different types of positions, secretaries and clerical staff. And under the new recommendation, it is just to allocate salaries equivalent to secretaries, or secretary positions are allocated. And there is more of a step of secretaries taken at each elementary, middle, and high school level. I won't get into the details on each of these, but there are fewer positions, but not that much difference. Mr. Chairman, next are the per ADM costs. Gifted and Talented has been decreased from $61 per student down to $25, and it's not going to be subject to an ECA under the recommendation from Pike Assad and Associates. Professional development funding is staying the same. Instructional and library materials increase of approximately $8. Assessments currently are not embedded in the block grant. It presumes the YTOP interim and modular assessments are used. $25 has been embedded under the select committee's recommendation, and again, not subject to an ECA. Technology and equipment stays the same under the current recommendation from the committee. And again, this is going to be an area where the committee wants to study the one-to-one computing ratio. CTE equipment and materials, already kind of spoke to this. The current law is going to stay the same. And then central office non-personnel resources, approximately a $50 increase on per ADM costs. And that's primarily related to technology costs at the central office. Student activities, the change here is primarily that under the current law, the allocation is at a school level or a school ADM basis. Under the select committee's recommendation and the recommendations that align with the evidence-based model, allocate this based upon the district's ADM. And there is a multiplier effect. The smaller you are, the more per ADM you get. And so with a district of 150 or less, you get a multiplier of 3. You take the base amount, multiply it by 3. So a elementary ADM with 150 students in the district or less is $105 per ADM, compared to a district of 2,000 and above at $35 per ADM. So the multiplier of 3 is applied to that $35 for districts with ADM or more, or 2,000 ADM or more. The same philosophy occurs for middle and high schools. Districts of 500 have a multiplier of 2.5, and then that multiplier is prorated in between the different levels of the sizes of the districts.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I was looking at that in the bill draft and just want to make sure that there's no cliff effect at any of the transition points. I didn't think there was, just wanted to make sure that was tested. I assume it was, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it is. And on the model you can online that you can examine, districts will have a multiplier anywhere between 3 and 1, depending on the size of the total district.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the next couple of components, I won't belabor these. Operations and maintenance, for maintenance workers, custodians, and groundskeepers stay the same. There are no changes in terms of the allocation or the formulas behind them. I will indicate in the custodian factors on slide 18, you'll see that the number of model teachers is one of the factors. So if you change class sizes, for example, one of the factors that is used in that is the model teachers. So depending on where the committee lands on its class sizes or minimum teachers, you will see a dynamic impact or carry-on effect on the number of custodians allocated to the school districts. It has nothing to do with the change in the formula. It's just the number of model generated teachers as being one of the factors. Mr. Chairman, on slide 20, component number 22, operations, maintenance and supplies. No change, $101.02 per educational gross square feet plus 10% for non-educational space. Utilities, while it has been ECA'd from school year 2009-10, the committee is putting in actual expenditures from school year 2024-25, subject to future ECAs. And then one change is that the current law only accounts for new schools added. Is funded on a per square foot basis. The committee has directed that both new and disposed of square footage are adjusted on a per square foot basis. Mr. Chairman, the next components are related to the central office personnel, both the professional and non-professional staff. What I've included here is a table that compares the current law at the recommended new prototype sizes of districts of 500 or less, 1,000 ADM, 2,000 ADM, 4,000 ADM, and 12,000 ADM. Under current law, the prototypes are 500, 1,000, and 3,500. And so there's been more prototypes added at the central office. Central office is one area where there are decreases in the number of model generated FTE. Another area for comparison is the school computer technicians under current law are allocated based on only the middle and high school ADM at the school level. This function has been moved to the central office recommendations kind of in three separate categories. You have the computer technicians, software managers, and network supervisors. And so you can see that kind of below the shaded total professional staff, those comparisons. Mr. Chairman, that is all of the model components at a very accelerated rate of speed. So I'm happy to take any questions before we kind of move on to the other policy considerations.
Through the months. Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions? Okay. Thank you for going through that again. I know that was also for the public benefit to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, the next kind of half of this presentation resides with the other kind of policy considerations that are outside of the block grant. And so I'm going to touch on these 5 areas on kind of the other policy considerations. Again, these are not necessarily related to the block grant components, but really related to the school finance system of Wyoming. So the first, and I think we kind of spoke about this earlier in Dr. Picus's presentation, is the committee has forwarded a proposal to have instructional resources that the committee has deemed kind of siloed or a categorical grant. And the committee's prohibited any expenditure or transfer of these funds for any other purpose. So what components do these consist of? The committee forwarded teachers, which are inclusive of the core elective specialist ELL, additional CTE minimum teachers, summer school and extended A teachers, tutors, and instructional facilitators and coaches. So on slide 24, I totaled under the current law and the select committee's recommendations what those differences in funding and FTE are. The select committee's recommendations in total recommend approximately 228 fewer FTE, and that's primarily driven, again, the ADM decision. The current law provides for the greater of the 3-year average and or the prior year. The select committee is recommending just using the prior year. So part of that FTE decrease is related not just to the class sizes or the minimum teachers, but the change in ADM counts. As I spoke to earlier, if the committee wished to allocate the minimum teachers at a grade band level, it would increase total FTE by about 206 teachers. So that difference would be about 22 teacher FTE under these instructional resources. So in terms of restricting these instructional resources, you're looking at approximately $600 million that would have to be used for teacher positions under these components. They couldn't be used to pay for any other operations of the district.
Senator Office.
To clarify that, though, the legislation is written such that it's fully fungible within those categories. And there's no requirement that you have that many tutors, for example, or that many ELL teachers within that category. You can theoretically use those FTEs for anything else within that category. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chairman and Chairman Office, that is accurate. And it's a valid point. So if a district wanted to have fewer tutors and smaller class sizes than what's allocated, they have the fungibility under that section of law to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, it's the dollars that are restricted. It's not the FTE. as well.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
Good clarification from Dr.
Good point.
Pickett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, the next area of consideration that the committee forwarded was this, and this kind of fits into cash flow efficiency of districts. So the committee first forwarded a change in the distribution of entitlement payments and special education payments. The top set of boxes and includes the select committee's recommendation, which now starts entitlement payments in July as opposed to August under current law. And it allocates 10% in July and 9% through May. Under current law, it's 15% in August and 10% through April and 5% or the balance in May. I've shaded the cumulative percentage that they're going to be allocated for both of these. You can see districts are ahead through July through November, and then they're slightly behind, 64% in January compared to 65% under current law. In April, they would be at 95% under current law. So really what does this do? It kind of front loads their cash flow on special education and entitlements. So again, this is just a policy consideration, but I wanted to illustrate in total what the impact is in both a monthly and a cumulative basis. This will, Mr. Chairman, put a little bit more pressure in terms of the school foundation program account on the first half of the fiscal year, and then it'll slow down on the second half of the year. Mr. Chairman, one of the other policy considerations that the committee forward was related to Wyoming Statute 2113-313 C and G. The first is under subsection C. Districts are limited to make any modifications to its data, including estimates of property tax revenue after March 31st. And this has become a complicated scenario for districts with mineral property taxes, because mineral property taxes are now being paid on a monthly basis. And so the committee has extended that time period for which modifications on this financial information that can be made until June 30th. And so if a district receives a large mineral property tax payment in May, they're able to adjust either their entitlement payments or their recapture payments in a timely manner. So they don't have a large tax excess or a tax shortfall the following year. Another consideration that the committee forward was related to cash flow loans. And then we heard quite a bit of testimony in October about this. Under current law, districts are allowed to receive a cash flow loan if they are a recapture district, or if 20% or less of their foundation program amount is paid out through their entitlement payments. That loan is structured from September 1st and that they pay it back on December 15th. And in some districts that they found that troubling or hard to pay that back in December, the committee's directive is to make this loan available from July, and we have it paid back by June 15th. What still retains in the law is that the Department of Education and the district can work together to ensure a proper cash flow analysis has been conducted so that we're not overextending a loan or giving them too much or too little. And so that is still retained in the statute, that analysis will be conducted. It'll just be conducted at a sooner time than is currently provided. So again, this helps those districts that rely on non-mineral property taxes, Teton County, and who have to pay back recapture. They can get those loans much sooner and hold on to them longer than current law provides. And that loan is under subsection G of section 313. Mr. Chairman, the next policy consideration in terms of efficiency cash flow is transportation. Two policy considerations under this that the committee forwarded was under current law, if a district purchases buses, it is reimbursed on a 5-year 20% basis. And the committee said, just reimburse the bus once it's delivered to the district. And so, and also pay those outstanding purchase amounts that are to be paid out over the next 5 years. And so working with the Department of Education, the outstanding liability on those purchases that have been made already is approximately $14.4 million. Additionally, the committee said no longer doing leasing. If we're going to buy a bus, we'll just pay it up front so we don't have any financing costs associated with that bus purchase. The remaining leases to be paid out is approximately $7.2 million. And so under the committee's proposal, you'll spend $21 million that you have already obligated yourself to. You'll just pay it out sooner rather than over the next 5 or so years. According to the Department of Education, in December, approximately $19.4 million in bus purchases have been ordered but not delivered. So that's a upcoming obligation under your current policy. We don't know when those will be delivered. I would defer to the Department of Education on when those are anticipated to be delivered, but it could be up to a year once they place the order to be delivered. And the districts aren't obligated to pay that bus until that bus is delivered. They don't pay it up front before it's delivered.
What's going to be, or what does it look like then the ongoing annual expense will be? Is it about that 19.4 million? Is that a year's worth of purchases that we haven't received yet? Do we have a sense of that?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Office, I would defer to the Department of Education. I don't know.
Okay.
All those purchases are made for various reasons. One could be an accident. Now, I would say insurance proceeds are reduced from the reimbursement amount. But various reasons, whether it's aged out in terms of miles or age, or a combination, or an accident. But I don't know what the annual amount will be.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, the next policy consideration that the committee forward in terms of kind of cash flow or an efficiency, and again, this was spoke to earlier this morning, so I won't belabor it, but related to special education, we already pay out the special education on a monthly basis. The next consideration, similar to bus purchases, is that out of district placements will occur in the current school year or when the district submits its request to the Department of Education. And this is done on various other items such as out-of-state tuition. So this is not an anomaly. You do this on other various components. I just wanted to, again, highlight what the committee has forwarded. Mr. Chairman, the The next policy consideration that'll be embedded in the bill that you'll discuss tomorrow is cash reserves. And there's a couple different moving parts on this, so I'll try to walk this a little bit slower than I have on the other areas. First, the legislature has started to track or compute a limitation of cash reserves since school finance reform in 1997. It uses school districts' financial audited state or audit statements to compute this. And they look at their general fund balances in those audited financial statements to determine what the general fund balance to be utilized is. Up until a few years ago, that limitation was 15% of a district's foundation program guarantee. I believe it was in the 2021 session that was increased from 15% to 30%. And then last session, the legislature extended that 30% cap to June 30th of 2028. The bill retains that date. And what the bill does is beginning, it should be July 1 of, or June 30th of 2029, it's 30 or down to 20% from 30%. The committee has also, there's been this historical balance, what we call the pre-97 balance, and then a model error payment paid out in 2002 that's been retained in this calculation, and it's excluded from this general fund balance. It equates to about $42 million, or about 3% of the district's foundation program guarantee. Another thing, this is not embedded in the policy, but perhaps for conversation of tomorrow's bill with the committee, and I'm sure districts will touch on this as well. The foundation program guarantee has been reduced by moving special education outside and reimbursed on a monthly basis. So 15% or 30% or 20% of that foundation program guarantee is different than what it was 3 years ago. The total amount of funding could be modified to include the foundation program guarantee and special education, CTE equipment and supplies, that's been pulled out. And so whatever your percentage is could be modified. Under the current bill draft, we retain it as just kind of the block grant dollars. And so you could modify this policy to be the foundation program guarantee plus special education plus any other categorical grant funding that is funded outside. That's a policy consideration for you. And I know it's come up in the PJ panels. So the amount that you're multiplying, or whatever the percentage is, has been reduced in the past couple of years. But I just wanted to highlight that. I'm sure you'll hear it in public testimony. Mr. Chairman, separate and apart from cash reserves, the next policy consideration has been to what counts as part of the computation of a district's revenues. From a high level, those are contained under Wyoming Statute 2113-310 subsection A. And under that section, these local revenues are deemed state revenues. So the 25 mil levy for school districts, the 6 county mil levy for schools, those are considered state revenues. They're collected by the local school districts and used as part of our foundation program calculation to determine whether or not a district is an entitlement district or a recapture district. And there's other various items included under there, such as auto taxes or forest reserves or fines and forfeitures. One item that has not been historically included and has been directed to be counted as a local revenue under the foundation program formula is investment earnings. And slide 31 shows the historical accounting of investment earnings that have been excluded from the entitlement and recapture computations since 2001. And you can see since 2023, those investment earnings have garnered over $20 million per year, almost 30 million in fiscal year 24. There are some reasons for this, and I don't have all of the answers, but my hypotheses are in three areas. The first is the timing of this is also when the legislature increased the cash reserves from 15% to 30%. So districts have been able to carry over a larger amount of their general fund from year to year. The second hypothesis is special education in fiscal year 24 started being paid out on a monthly basis, the total amount. So districts weren't relying on their local revenues to help pay for those special education reimbursements as part of the entitlement and recapture formula. And then the third, the timing of this also sets up that this is about when monthly mineral ad valorem revenues have started to be deposited in districts' property tax payments. And so those are my three reasonings, I presume, is why these investment earnings have increased dramatically over the historical period. It's a policy call whether or not the committee includes these in the computation. Under current law, again, the local revenue exclusions indicate in statute other revenue that could not be used by the district to provide educational services. I anticipate districts are using these interest earnings or investment earnings to provide educational services. And so if these investment earnings are 10 million in fiscal year 27, 28, 29, that would reduce the state's entitlement payments or increase recapture. Think about it on a fiscal profile balance or page 4 of the goldenrod. If the estimated balance of the foundation program is to be 176 million, which is what the governor's recommendations or the fiscal profile under the January 2026 Craig projections are. This doesn't presume any increases from the recalibration. But if we were to count investment earnings as a local revenue and they were $10 million per year for the biennium, the balance at the end of the biennium would be 196 million as opposed to 176 million. That's the impact that this has. The state would spend less money out of the foundation program or receive more via a recapture payment. So I'll pause there. This is kind of a consideration that
Any
may
questions?
need further discussion.
Senator, okay, speaker first and then Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick, maybe you can help me out. When you go back to 2000, beginning in basically 2005 and running to 2009, there's an anomaly there of income. What was that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is prior to the constitutional amendment to recapture 100% of a district's revenues in excess of the foundation program. Campbell County School District number 1, Sublette County School District number 1 and 9, Lincoln County School District number 1 were able to retain recapture amounts in excess of their foundation or local revenues. We were limited on how much we could recapture. There was a formula in the Constitution that prohibited the state from recapturing 100% of the local revenue in excess of their foundation program guarantee. We kind of talked about this with Teton County this morning. So districts in that time period were able to retain excess, what we call rebated recapture. The state would not recapture that 100%. In 2008, the Constitution was amended, and the following year, the legislature amended the computation in statute. That's the reason why that anomaly exists prior to 2009, 2010, is they had rebated recapture revenues in their general fund earning substantial interest.
Okay, follow up? No, that's it. Senator, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this, as explained, makes a lot of sense. One of the concerns I have, and I guess I'd ask what the motivation would then be. Right now, the districts that have substantial savings have some incentive to invest that savings somewhere to provide a yield. And the speculation that we would receive these same amounts if that motivation was taken away, I think is hard to get to. There's a challenge there. You hire people and you do work to make that happen. And if there was no local resource associated incentive, it seems that you would just put all your funds in a money market or something at 0.24% and make your life easy, because then you can just drag it over to your checking account. I guess I don't know how to play this one in such a way that it works for everyone. Do you have any thoughts on that concern?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Office, I've thought about this. I think the only way you maybe come to a balance is districts retain 50% of it. So 50% counts and 50% doesn't.
That's kind of what I think.
Or some other proportional
Yeah.
amount where there is some incentive that their balances are invested in something other than a money market.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what the balance on that proportion is. If it's 60-40 or 40-60 or 50-50, that's the only, and I'm sure people behind me can tell you what the appropriate balance is. It might be 100% theirs and zero, but Mr. Chairman, yeah, that is kind of the only motivation, is that
Yeah.
they would retain a portion of it, but maybe not all of it.
Mr. Chairman, one more question, and I can't remember if this still exists or not. It seems that we've had the capacity for state subdivisions of any type to utilize the treasurer's office. What's the situation there? I assume all of these funds could technically be residing in whatever we call that entity.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Office, I do believe districts utilize the WildStar accounts. I think there's 3 of them now. But yes, I do believe some districts utilize the WildStar as a investment tool. They might have other, and again, they can speak to their own unique situations, but yes, I do know that districts do utilize the WildStar.
Do you, off the top of your head, and you may not, remember the parameters of the WildStar accounts, or is that something we should get more information on? Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Senator Office, I do not. I will get that information. I'll
Thanks.
send it out to you.
Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, it seems like this would be more beneficial to the larger school districts than small school districts because they have more cash available. So is that true? Am I seeing that wrong?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Heiner, I would say no. It depends on their situation. I anticipate Converse County school districts, which are not the largest school districts, are receiving substantial mineral property tax monthly. And they don't have to rebate, or state doesn't recapture that until January 15th. 50% of the recapture payment and the balance in June. So if they can invest millions of dollars beginning in July every month, they will earn some money. So it's not necessarily the size of the district, it's their unique situation. Teton County doesn't receive a lot of their property tax revenue till November, and they have to rebate 50% of that in January. So they only have a limited time of property tax revenue. So it's, again, my hypothesis on why we've seen this large growth falls into kind of the 3 categories. The monthly mineral ad valorem payments, which I think is a majority of it. It's the state's paying special education on the same schedules as entitlement payments, which is 10 times a year now. And it's the full $300 million or close to $300 million on a monthly basis. So if their special education payments aren't equal, they're earning some interest. And then finally, it's the allowance of the limitation being increased from 15 to 30%. That one does impact the larger districts because they're able to retain more money and they get more money.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something really quick? Catherine Camerati, LSO Budget Fiscal. So the WildStar accounts, WildStar 1 is more of like a short-term account, and its transaction size is about $1,000. Wildstar 2 is kind of the longer term, and it's about a $25,000 transaction size. And then Wildstar 3, that's the equities pool. So it authorizes counties, municipalities, and school districts to participate in it. It's a very quick synopsis.
Yeah, great. That's good information.
Yeah,
There it is.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Mr. Chairman, are there any other questions on that? I will, I think, finish off with, I have 2 slides left. The next area that the committee has forwarded is related to the prohibition or of transferring or expending their foundation program amounts for the purposes of capital construction or major maintenance. And so there currently is not a prohibition on that. So districts can transfer funds out of their block grant dollar for any capital construction or major maintenance project that they see fit. The bill that the committee will consider prohibits that. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, again, we've already discussed these in detail, but I'll just again give a quick synopsis. The committee intends to reconvene next interim, reauthorize itself. It will study mental health, which encompasses counselors, pupil support, school nurses, the use of one-to-one computing and the student ratio and the allocation recommended under the evidence-based model, $450 per student. And then 2 other areas that the committee has worked on over the interim, school resource officers and school nutrition programs. We really have not settled on any recommendations from Dr. Pikes and his team because he's still looking for direction from the committee. And I think the committee's direction is we're going to deal with this next year. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the committee. And
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Going back 1 slide to slide 32, the prohibited transfers and expenses. I remember this conversation, but something just occurred to me, which gets to major maintenance on enhancements where we have a certain specific allowance right now through our funding formula where you can use major maintenance towards enhancements. But there might be a circumstance where a district was using more than that amount of major maintenance potentially for enhancements, and they were using their school foundation program and expecting that. It seems like that would be a lot, but I just kind of want to know, do you think that's possibly happening? Are we going to have any problems where a school district is actually utilizing it, has been planning on utilizing it, and sort of has that structured into their budget?
Mr. Chairman in center office, I don't know. I would have to defer to the districts on if this is going to impact their major maintenance allocation or expenditures.
Yeah.
I would give you 2 pieces of information. The first is you have substantially increased the major maintenance allocation under the formula from last year. You now have a multiplier of 2.5% of their cost replacement value as opposed to 2%. So that was an increase of about $30 million statewide. Second, now they have 10% of their major maintenance allocation to maintain enhancements, not build enhancements, but to maintain existing enhancements. How the state construction department has administered that is it's kind of a carryover authority, whether that's right or wrong. But if they have not exercised their enhancement maintenance, major maintenance authority in previous years, even though they've expended all those dollars, they carry over that expenditure authority. And so they could, in theory, use a much greater share of their major maintenance allocation 1 year.
So when they needed to replace an enhancement, for example, something along those lines, they could utilize that justification. Mr. Chairman, sorry for not going through on that one. They would have the flexibility to do that. That makes good sense.
Mr. Chairman, in center office, under the current operation of the department, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I guess I'd just ask everybody, this is one that I haven't heard anyone say anything about really. But if there is something we're missing on that, please let us know. Anyone? Mr. Wilmot?
Mr. Chairman, that's it for me. And unless
Does anyone else on the panel here have anything to share, add?
I would just add that he didn't go through the list of all the things in the model as quickly as I did in October.
Okay. Well, with that, then, I'd like to get into public comments, public testimony. And this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to again invite any parents up first, any citizens not directly a part of the education community. So if you fit into any of those two categories, please come forward. Otherwise, I will open it up to anyone wishing to make public comment. And at this point, from now until the end of the day, it's open to any part of the recalibration issues or anything related to the bill, what's in the bill. So don't hesitate to comment on any aspect of what's been before us today. So with that, we have 4 chairs up front, and please fill them, and we're eager to hear your comments. Welcome back, sir.
Mr. Chairman, again, Jeremy Smith, Business Manager, Sheridan County School District Number 1, and I think it's my 28th year. So I predate this model. So I do want to address 2 separate issues. One is, well, they're really the last 3 things that Mr. Wilmarth hit on: cash reserves, the revenue exclusion, and then this prohibition on transfer. So I'll be brief as I can, but there's a lot to unpack here. The cash reserves issue, my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, if you would take it, is to just leave the 30% because you've changed what the 30% is based on, right? Because I think Mr. Wilmarth alluded to that we've changed the what. And so also changing the percentage multiplier of that really kind of leaves it where it's at currently, if that makes sense, because you've really dropped what it used to be. The 15% of a bigger number is the same as 30% of a smaller number. Does that make sense? So I would strongly recommend that you leave that alone. Don't try to figure out, okay, add this back in and add this in. Just leave it at the 30% of the smaller number. It's just simple. Keep it simple, right? That's my suggestion. You're probably not going to take it. I wish you would. Because so far you haven't taken any of my suggestions, Mr. Chairman. So, hey, I'm over. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Okay, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here.
bet.
What do you believe impact it has on that 30% with the committee's desire to be able to do more quickly reimbursing the districts so they're not being required to carry so many dollars in reserve to be able to take care of any responsibilities that come up? So, I mean, I'd like to hear what's your thoughts on what impact that has had on the requirements, because that was the whole argument before, was you need that 30% because you guys are going to be expected to pay for things that you're not going to be getting reimbursed for. Explain to me why 20 is not good.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Speaker, you bring up a good point, right? If I believed you were going to pass every one of these levers the way it looks, yes, it would not have to be 30%. I'm not convinced you're going to pass all of the components together.
Sounds like a challenge.
Right? So I'm being serious, right? You're asking, why am I advocating for the 30%? Well, because I don't believe that you're going to actually give us the monthly reimbursement on the out of district placements. I don't believe you're going to do that yet. If you do that, yes, you can be less than 30%. I will absolutely go, yes, it can be less than 30%. But what is that trust verify? I don't, some sort of, the proof is in the pudding. Let me see you do it. And then I'll be like, all right, it can be less. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Speaker. Okay. Yeah, this thing on the interest, all right. Mr. Wilmar's hypotheses 1, 2, and 3 are legit. What he forgot is number 4, inflation. Inflation drives interest rates, right? And so for a hot minute, you could get 6% on a checking account without even thinking about it. Well, that keeps dropping. So if you want to know what's driving that and has driven that, is that house mortgage rates were what? In the double, I mean, they were approaching double digits again or something. That's what's driving. This will go back. If you just extend this little chart back out, it goes right back down to what it looks like in 16, 17, 18, 19. And then it's much ado about nothing. My strong suggestion is leave it as it is. You probably won't. You won't take that suggestion either. But if you make it to where you keep it all, you won't be getting anything. Just a hypothesis I have, because there will be zero incentive for anyone to do anything. Mr. Senator Roth's position is correct. We will just keep it in a checking account and go. There you go, local banker, enjoy. Because I'm not gonna waste any time if I don't get to keep any of it, right? Just being honest. I told you I always would. All right, last but not least, this prohibited transfer thing, it hasn't come up because there's been a lot of other hairballs to talk about first, but this is gross with a side of bad. Okay, here's the deal. In Senator Beitman's district, one of our schools has a turf football field because many years ago, another bad decision was made by the School Facilities Commission not to pay for it as part of the issue. So we had to do it as an enhancement because there's no water at Bighorn. I know that sounds kind of dumb, but there's no water there, right? And so we had to have a turf field because you got a K-12 campus, one football field, one athletic play surface, had to be turf. Grass, no bueno, didn't grow. So we went with turf. Well, guess what? We got to replace the turf. Well, what are we going to use to replace the turf? I can't use I can use some major maintenance money, but shockingly enough, we spend our major maintenance money on major maintenance projects. So I'm not just chilling over here with a bunch of money in it. So this is a bad idea with a side of let's not do it. So just suggesting that we are not transferring massive amounts of money out of our general fund to hide it from someone or anything. Our teachers they'd be hot and livid. They know where all of our money's going. They expect it to go to our kids. So do we. That's what our locally elected school board does. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a bad idea. We decided don't do it. So
I got it. It's a bad idea.
bad idea.
Okay.
Again,
Got it.
that's it, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to stand for any questions, but I wanted to comment on those because it felt right.
Any questions?
Like I said.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I mean,
Yes, sir.
as I've toured around the state and looked at different facilities and things like that, what about the facilities that maybe outside dollars, other than district dollars, and created these enhancements?
Yeah.
I mean, when we're being asked to fund different parts of the educational process, I mean,
Right.
not everybody is going to be able to have a swimming pool. I'd love a swimming pool in Hewlett. We don't have one in Sundance, Hewlett, Marcroft, or anywhere in my part of the country except in Campbell County. Well, what happens if somebody comes in and a philanthropist says, hey, guess what? I'd like to build you folks a swimming pool. But they don't give us any money to continue to maintain it.
Right.
What then?
So,
Do I
Mr.
want to
Chairman,
come back to the state and say, hey, we got a
Yeah.
pool, we don't want to lose it, so we need to be able to use some money that should be going somewhere else to keep our pool going that you guys didn't buy?
Mr. Chairman, it's an interesting question you asked, Mr. Speaker, about how these things happen over time. Good intentions sometimes go awry when people forget they have to be replaced. Right. And so our turf field is a very specific example of that. In our district, we did pass a bond issue for enhancements. That turf field was not included in it because we believed and were told and led to believe that the turf field at Bighorn would be included because we couldn't grow grass because we were building everything in the same campus, et cetera, et cetera. That fell apart, but we had already spent all of our bond issue on the enhancements in the construction of the buildings. That's what had happened. And so a group of parents said, well, hey, we'll take care of that. We'll help you out with that, blah, blah, blah. Then the great financial crisis happened and all of them scattered like the wind. And so the district ended up having to do it out of Hyde. And so it's considered an enhancement. And so in order to take care of that, we have to either do some sort of fundraising, some sort of take it out of Hyde, save money over time, et cetera, something, because it exists. So you have this sort of this weird issue of sometimes these things happen for all the right reasons at the time, but 20, 25 years later, they become someone else's problem. And so I understand what you're saying. We don't have swimming pools either, right? Tongue River, Bighorn don't have swimming pools. So, and nor would I want one for the love of all things holy. But I don't know that I'm answering your question very specifically, but sometimes these things just happen and then someone's got to pick up the pieces and do something about it. And when you have these prohibitions on these transfers, we can't fix historical problems then. That they're ours, and I don't know what you would do about it except for not have Bighorn win another 2A football championship or something. So, yeah, sure. I don't know if I answered your question at all, Mr. Speaker, but I took a stab at just the idea that sometimes we're handed problems we don't know how to fix. And we're not going to, we got to be able to use the tools, and restricting the tools in the toolkit from us isn't going to help. Our communities are not going to love that, being honest.
Appreciate Johnston.
Yeah, please.
But I appreciate Johnston, Mr. Smith, and that is true. I mean, I see it, and I've looked at it, and I've also discussed this with other issues. I said, hey, you guys only funded us a 6-lane track.
Correct.
We needed 2 more lanes to be able to compete.
Right.
So what are we going to do? I need money to take care of those other 2 lanes. Well, then the issue comes, well, we need money to pay teachers more. And we need money to be able to fund our facilities and make sure our educators are well paid and insured and all that stuff. Well, we also need money for something you guys didn't build, but we'd like to keep it.
Mhm.
And so just so, I mean, just for everybody's benefit.
yeah.
I mean, that's the part of this that people don't really like to deal with, is that if you're gonna go put lights on over the top of a football field, that you know, God's green earth has been lit by the sun for a long time, but we want to play under the lights.
Mhm.
Down the road, when somebody has to replace the bulbs and maybe fix the footing under one of those lights, you know, the district didn't pay for that. Somebody gave it to them, but the district will be on the hook for the long-term maintenance. And so, just so that we understand that that's kind of all needs to be in the mix when we're making these decisions.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Speaker, in response, I would say, the state in general, its citizens and its elected officials, whether the locally elected school board, you know, county commissioners or you as legislators, you have a difficult responsibility, all of you, is to sort of understand what is it that our citizens want? What are they willing to pay for? And what happens in the future when something changes? And education has changed drastically. I said, I'm close to being in this, my 30th year close, and the things we do now, we didn't used to do. We didn't, and I imagine 30 years from now, there'll be stuff that we'll be doing then that we don't do now. So we have to adjust to changing times and realize that we are blessed to be in Wyoming where money is not really a problem. And so, Mr. Chairman, I say you guys as elected officials at all levels have a difficult task. And all we can do is give the best advice we can.
Can I quote you on money's not really a problem part?
Mr. Chairman, I read the Craig report. Money's not really a problem.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
So for the benefit of the committee, it's my intent to go till 4 o'clock for public comment. We'll take a 10-minute break and then we will resume public comment. So just wanted to let everyone know what the future holds. Who is next? I'll tell you what, I think ma'am.
Thank you, co-chairs. Kristen Mayo, Teton County. I wanted to speak quickly about the interest and the capital transfers. The interest in school districts, you know, we spend a lot of time, we in Teton County have looked at YLStar, we've looked at some of our other investment options. And what we actually ended up doing was doing a bid, a request for proposal of all of our local banks to try and keep as much money within our community as we could. So we have a local bank that we work with that has given us a competitive rate to any other interest, which helps us, one, because it keeps all of our money liquid at the same time as it gives us a significant amount of interest money that for now we get to have some authority over. And it's not a ton of money when you look at our whole foundation guarantee. This year I have budgeted $1.5 million in interest earnings. But this part of the bill does de-incentivize a district to go out and actually work and find the best deal in terms of earning that interest. Along with that, though, it gives us the ability to negotiate bank fees. And I don't know how many of you have managed large pots of money, but that was one of the biggest priorities in our RFP when we went out to bid for banking services, was to minimize the banking fees. And so it's a pretty big carrot. We'll still have the carrot because we have the money, but it kind of reduces our incentive to really get the best deal, the best bang for the buck. You know, Senator Rothfuss with the split, I'd rather keep all of the money. A split is a good compromise, maybe 80-20.
Okay.
The next one is the capital transfer. We often talk about what the enhancements are in our schools. We built a K-5 elementary school a couple of years ago, and when I walked into the gym in the K-5 elementary school, I was shocked at how small it was. It barely fits the size of a basketball court, and it's carpeted. And the reason for that is because the state facilities department views a gym, a full-size gym in an elementary school, as an enhancement. And we did not pay to enhance that part of that school. And we've regretted it quite often ever since then. But because of the way that the school facilities is structured, that's not a space that we can now rent out for rental facility revenue. If there's big events, we can't have them there at that school. And that is our largest elementary school. So there's other pieces and there's other portions of capital construction that are considered enhancements that we have in Teton County that are really just part of educating students. I would encourage you to really look at what an enhancement is, and maybe you need to restrict the spending on enhancements from that capital reserve to things that are reasonable within the law. And I don't know how you do that because that gets really messy and really administratively heavy, but it's not all swimming pools. Our community has asked for a swimming pool and just beat our school board to death with that request. And we don't do it because it's so expensive. And the piece of building the pool is not the question, it's the long-term maintenance. So I do think that you have school boards and administrators that are making the right decisions in the school, but sometimes we don't make the right decisions. For example, in our elementary school, we should have expanded that gym and we didn't because it was considered an enhancement.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Questions? Okay, appreciate, yeah, yes, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just ask that Ms. Mayo stay here because I think the next speaker is going to be addressing this issue too. We may want to have some follow-up questions for you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bear.
Who's next? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Kirk Schmidt. I retired several years ago, but I spent 39 years working in K-12 finance director in Wyoming Public Schools. So you can think about in my career how many of these things I've been through. I went clear back to the original Washakie case. So it's been kind of interesting to watch how all this goes. So I'm here today as a citizen, but I'm a pretty well-informed citizen about school funding in this state. All of the formulas provided for local school boards with the resources needed to provide education to students. In the 2005 final report to the legislature, there's a specific statement that says the key role for the state is to determine the appropriate level of resources for each school and each school district and devise a cost-based method, a recalibrated block grant, for allocating the funds to the districts. The district must allocate those resources to the schools in a way that ensures each school has adequate dollars for meeting the needs of the students. That's from 20 years ago, but it actually could have been applied to every part of foundation guarantee funding models for the past 50 years. This language makes it clear that the final decision of resources belongs to the local district. The vast majority of school districts, those locally elected school board members represent more citizens than their local legislators. How have we come to a point where the mindset that the government is closest to the people isn't to be trusted to make the decisions that affect the people in their community? If legislators are unwilling to talk to local school district personnel, how can you understand how your local school district operates? When you're proposing legislation that takes away the ability of locally elected school boards to make financial decisions, you're also taking away the ability of the local taxpayers to have input as to how the school board appropriates those resources provided by the funding program. If it's the desire of the legislature to move those decisions away from locally elected school boards, then you should be transparent about that. The past 3 years, there has been either proposed legislation or legislation that's passed that slowly takes away decisions that have generally been local decisions. If you're going to do that, then you should be transparent and do away with all the laws that establish local school boards and put that authority either with the Legislative Service Office or WDE or wherever your desire is, but be transparent. Right now, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It just keeps eroding local control. If that's your desire, then I would ask that you give all the taxpayers in the state notice that that's your intent and that's what you want to do. Because that's the only fair way that everybody's going to know. Because right now, I can tell you that the general public isn't aware of those things that have happened over the last several years. 3 years ago, there was a statement made by one of your colleagues in the legislature. She said that although she believes in local control, it has its limits and local government is merely political subdivisions of the state. Well, she's not from Wyoming, and I can tell you that isn't how Wyoming works. Political subdivisions have always been sacrosanct as they're the closest ones to the voters, and they're the ones that are making the decisions. There are many things in here that people will look at as government overreach, and it takes a bunch of things away from local taxpayers. And I'll give you a couple examples because a lot of this stuff has come up in the last 39 years and was addressed. And Mr. Chairman, I'll talk to Senator Roth has brought up a great point about interest and investment earnings. That's come up before about counting that as a local resource. And what was said is exactly right. You're taking the incentive away from local school boards and business managers to work as hard as they have to work to maximize the interest on the taxpayers' money. That's taxpayers' money, wherever it came, whatever the source came from, it's taxpayers' money. And people take it very seriously. And the fact that it remains in that district is why they work so hard. So and those monies do go to kids. I can tell you that's what school boards use them for. Go ask your local school board. Pre-97 cash reserve, I would strongly suggest that you talk to your legal counsel. As you heard, that money already ran through the system once. Rebated recapture already ran through. And I always use the example of that's like you having to pay income tax on your income tax refund. I don't know that I suspect that if you're trying to take away that money, you're going to end up in court again because, as I said, it's already been run through the system. Enhancements have been a headache forever, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I was on the School Facility Commission at one point, and that was a topic of conversation, and how it ended up where it is today is enhancements were made with local tax dollars, however those came up. Okay, well, if you're going to use local tax dollars, you should be able to use tax money to keep those enhancements up to date. If you take that ability away out of 10% major maintenance, all of a sudden you're telling the local taxpayers that they have to come up with another source of funding to take care of something that they funded in the first place. Swimming pools were always a hairball, and that's where you came up with the processes in place now about if you're going to have a local bond issue to pay for that, you have to have a sinking fund to maintain it. Just because of the expense of that facility. That's where that came from. Mr. Chairman, one thing that we've all kind of lost sight of over time was good governmental budgeting practices. Good governmental budgeting practices leads you to end the year with a surplus. That's your goal. When I was the business manager, I always told people, and the districts I worked in, they knew it was coming. It wasn't an April Fool's joke, but we stopped purchasing April 1st because I said it stopped the government spending deal. You've all heard, like the military, Mr. Chairman, oh, we got to spend it all so we don't get our budget cut. Well, and realistically, it was interesting. There were a lot of administrators that got that. They could spend money if it had to finish the year, but after that, many years ago, I had a conversation with the chairman of the House Chairman of Joint Appropriation, Dick Wallace from Campbell County. Because the same thing came up. Why do school districts need cash reserves? And we talked about that. I said, okay, you're being frugal with tax dollars, but now for some reason you want to punish school districts for doing the right thing, for saving money. That's what you're doing. He said, yeah, we just don't trust you. Really? That's the answer? I mean, school boards are the question came up about that. Okay, school boards aren't going to hoard money because I can guarantee you their taxpayers in the district aren't going to let them hoard money. And the employees aren't going to let them hoard money. They're going to use it for something else.
I
If no problem, Mr.
apologize
Chairman,
for
that's
interrupting
fine.
you. I
No
want to
problem.
make sure.
Yep, that's fine, Mr.
No, I want you to sum up though. Please.
No, that's it. The cash reserve has always been an issue. Like I said, good budgeting practices, you should have a surplus. You watch counties, cities, municipalities, everybody. But school districts always been a hard target. And I'm always sat there and I think, why? If we're going to be fiscally prudent with taxpayer dollars, why should we get penalized for it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And I, again, apologize.
No,
I'm
no
just
problem.
trying to
I
make sure
understand.
everyone,
Nope.
so I haven't warned the committee this, but I'm curious. Can I see the hands of the committee members who have actually talked to their local school districts? Okay. And then another question. Can I see the members who have children who are in K through 12 education still? Okay. Good. Thank you again. Appreciate your testimony. Sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Alex Ayers, Superintendent of Campbell County. I've been an administrator there for 26 years and the superintendent for the last 8. Mr. Chairman, I do have a handout, if you wouldn't mind, that I think will really clarify the impact of the regional cost adjustment.
You know, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thanks for that flexibility, and I
Yeah.
appreciate your patience in public comment. This is really important work that you're doing.
I will tell you, I normally don't do that. And I prefer to know ahead of time, but today I'm going to be flexible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think you'll be disappointed in the information I'm providing.
Okay.
And so that's my primary focus. I have several concerns about the recalibration effort. I do hope to be asked about enhancements. That's a good thing for the state. It's not a bad thing. I do want to, if I could, Mr. Chairman, talk about being a recapture district to the comments made by Senator Beitman this morning. We, of course, are a recapture district in Campbell County. Since the beginning of recapture, our community has sent $1.5 billion to the state in recapture payments. This year is anticipated to be between 25 and 30 million. We'll see how strong the mineral industry performs throughout the year. To the question about keeping additional money in recapture districts, certainly wouldn't mind that, but as Mr. Wilmar said, that would be a constitutional problem. But I would maintain there is a way to provide some help because there are impacts in boom and bust communities. There are impacts in Teton as well. One way to do that is this conversation about interest. The resources that fund Campbell County are local resources. The state does not provide any funding to Campbell County, hence the recapture payment. So while we receive that money from the treasurer, we invest it in WGIF, Wyoming Governmental Investment Fund. I think I heard what Mr. Wilmar said, but I think number 4 is because the interest rate has been high these last 3 years. If you go back 5 years, our interest rate was under 100,000, I believe. The general fund interest earned by our district, and we have an accounting manager that invests a lot of time and effort in how we do that, has ranged from 3 to 4 million a year. And that's part of why I know I'm going to be asked about the 8.5% salary. It's part of my answer to that question. So if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. Before I get started on my handout,
I'm being flexible, but I do need to get through everyone. So please.
Mr. Chairman, I made a correction today and there's not a lot of I's here. The data just became available recently. I'm going to ignore columns F through what should be I on the right and probably every page to follow and focus primarily on the first 2 pages.
Okay.
I do have an error I'd like to point out. It's Lincoln 2 on page 2. After you see in the row 1.14 for regional cost adjustment, those salaries and the dollar figure difference from the average are wrong. They should be the same as the other district that has 14%, and that salary is $72,395, and it would be a plus 1834. My apologies for that error. But the big picture here is the regional cost adjustment is a nothing burger, and it's intended to be that way. If I could read to you from Dr. Taylor's work, I think this sums it up. She first talks about the current process of hire of the three, as you're well aware. And then she finishes that narrative with, as an alternative, the legislature could choose to eliminate the best of three approach to the index construction and simply replace the RCA with the 2025 hedonic wage index, rebased as the legislature sees fit. She doesn't care what you pay teachers. She wants equity among the districts. Her next statement is, such change could be calibrated to be revenue neutral to the state, and goes on. And that's really what this does. So if I could explain, I think we all learned at the last meeting for the first time, we're not talking about starting teacher wages and adjusting for experience and education, which I think is in direct conflict with Campbell 2. Regardless, the proposal is an average salary, which you see in column A for every single district in the state, every teacher position, regardless of seniority or which is experience, regardless of education or responsibility, all which are addressed in Campbell 2. B is probably what we should be talking about. In fact, I left the meeting and I was reading in the media that the new starting wage was going from 44,000 and change to this $70,000 number. It's not, as you know, that's an average compared to a starting wage. Column B is truly the new average salary. Again, not starting wage, new average salary because of the approach to the regional cost adjustment. Dr. Taylor's looking at what she considers the least cost of labor in the state of Wyoming, and that happens to be Niobrara. And everything is calculated from that number. That's where rebased comes from. We're rebasing the average salary. You can see her work on item C, which I've spent 20 years arguing with the RCA approach, which you need to know this isn't a black and white exercise. You don't hire independent consultants that go out and do black and white work. There are options. There are many, 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 and that's part of my right side and many, many others. But these are the regional costs she's come up with on a rebased amount, not the average you talked about last meeting, but on a rebased amount. And I want you to look at them and see if they make sense. I'm not going to point out other districts. I often don't talk about regional costs because I never want to be harmful to another district. It's why we've always supported multiple approaches. It is not a perfect estimation. Fremont is really interesting to me. This is supposed to be a comparable wage index. If you interview, and I've interviewed hundreds, and you lose a prospective candidate, it's because of about three different things. What are you going to pay me? What does it cost to get housing? What's your health insurance? I've never had a candidate say, how far are you from a town of 50,000? Not one. How many special programs kids do you have? I don't think so. Those things are maybe factors, but they're not the big rocks. And this system does not focus on the big rocks. So I think, it just shocks me to see these numbers. But if you look at then column D, I call this the clawback towards the average. That's all this rebase RCA is doing, is clawing you back. And 16 districts get to the positive. The other 2/3 are negative. And it's not going to work. I hope you don't leave today thinking if you fix Teton, you fix this. It's a big problem. I can talk about her methodologies in 2010, 15, 18, and recently. If you look at any wage index, or you talk to anybody in the state of Wyoming, I will tell you we've had zero access to Taylor and Stoddard, although Dr. Pikus, to his credit, offered that last week, I believe. And we need to do that. I'll formally request that. Every index will tell you Campbell County wages, comparable wages, are in the top 4 in any metrics, from HUD loans, household income, your Department of A&I, Department of Workforce Services, knows the county wage index for every single county.
I'll give you a minute and then we're gonna have to sum it up here.
Very good. Let me just show you why this comparative wage index doesn't work. If you don't mind turning to page 10. Senator Rothfuss saw this years ago in one of our many battles over regional costs. And I'll just point out Campbell County. And if you go to the column 2018 HWI, you'll see Campbell County was recommended to be 105, not rebased, just 105. And I might mention that the other recommendations that preceded that for Campbell County were 7%, 11%, 15%, 17%. All would have been increases. None of them were enacted into legislation. But you'll see the next column is excluding HWI, excluding the county wage index. Do you see it doesn't change? If you look at that right-hand column and you look at county wage indexes at the time in 2018, 111 stands out like a sore thumb. That tells you the impact of a county wage index on an HWI. It didn't change us one bit. And the most impact it had was a difference of 1. So Senator Rothfuss, you may remember that conversation in Casper as part of why that crumbled at that time. I know you would like to end public comment. So
No.
For myself.
I just want to
Thank
be
you.
fair to everyone.
Absolutely.
We're going to
But I'd
spend
be happy
all
to
the rest
answer your
of the day
question.
on
Yes, sir.
public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you so much. Sir,
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I apologize. Anyone have any questions? Thank you for your
Yes, thank
testimony.
you.
Mr. Co-Chair, I do also have something to pass out if you would like.
What would you like passed out?
This is a memo that shows 3 different things that I'd like to talk about. The first is what each of the components that have been proposed, what it would do to our district. The second is that it has a listing of how we compare on an average salary amount with our neighboring state. And then the third point I'd like to kind of.
I'll tell you what, I'll let you, we'll pass this out, but just sum up for us in the few minutes for your commentary. If there's anyone else who has anything they want passed out,
Sure.
please give it to our LSO staff.
Okay.
So my preference is that you sum up what is in this document, and my concern is I want to make sure everyone has the ability to speak. And so I'm being very flexible, but I don't want at the end of the day people in the hallway saying I didn't have a chance to speak because someone thought their voice was more important than someone else. So please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Before we start. And if we can get an electronic copy of these handouts to our legislative service office, because these should be public documents
Yes,
posted on the web.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Co-Chair, if you go to page 7, there is a listing of different levers or model elements that and how they affect in a dollar amount UNO1 and things. The cumulative effect, and I probably would add a 15th, which is the change in the Wyoming retirement. The cumulative effect is 6.2% decrease, with state insurance being the last element that's in, and that is causing the district to be negative $2.4 million just with that element. We start to break even, then all of a sudden that element just puts us under. One way that you can kind of quickly look at what's the impact of different things is a teacher is roughly $100,000. Support staffs are roughly $50,000. So if we're looking at the end of the day, with this model coming out, $2.4 million, you're looking at, if it's support staff, that's 50. If it's teachers, it's 24. The legislature has added, by these calculations, 7.88, or excuse me, $1,788,000 in new salary. But in order to get that, you've got to cut underneath to make that happen. So that's kind of the first piece. Page 9 lists, this is from the Utah State Board of Education. It lists the average teacher salaries in Utah, and it's the most current information that I've got, which is for 24-25. What is interesting for me is If we were to overlay the model amount in 24-25, it would be third from the bottom in Utah. If we add, okay, so one of the things that we do is we we look for money in the model and things. The budgeted average salary in U101 moves that up 4 spots. The proposed model salary that we have got calculations for puts us at an average teacher salary in U1 at $69,012, which is under the 70,000 and change, just by a little bit. But that puts us in the bottom third in Utah, in comparison with Utah. In other words, my contention is that the model teacher salary, if it's truly a model, is underestimating the market in relation with U1 and Utah. The next page has it's the same information, but it looks at the kind of the differences between that average salary and our comparable districts that are next door. And I've got the distance in miles from U1. So for instance, Rich
I'll tell you what,
County.
I'm going to give you one more minute and then we're going to take a break.
Okay, thank you. Rich County is paying $12,000 more. Park City, $30,000 and so on. And so the point that I'm making is that representatives on the committee and else have said, hey, we want to be equal to or approaching what other states are paying. And I would say, hey, at 31st percentile, bottom third, that's not the case in Southwest Wyoming. That's time for questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. We're going to take a 15-minute break and we'll start right back up with public comment. So.
By the way, I probably did what you told me to do.
Okay, let's go. Okay, I'll bring this meeting back to order. Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarity, I want to note that I and nor have the committee members had a chance to read these materials that were just given to us. And nor can we respond to them. And I know you're going out of your way, Mr. Chairman, to accommodate the public and their comments and getting their wishes out there. And this goes against our rules under the quorum, and we don't spring amendments on each other on the floor. There's rules for submitting those so people have time to read them and can intelligently talk about them. Just like we put our materials out on the web a couple weeks prior to our meetings, so you all have a chance to review them and formulate an opinion on them. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I respect you, Mr. Chairman, for wanting to get these to us, but also wanted to remind the public that it's not part of our decorum to bring handouts without us approving them first or having a chance to read them.
So I want to apologize to the committee for that. In my effort to be as open as possible to the comments of the public, I should not have allowed that. And again, I apologize to the committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, who is speaking?
this is Representative Kelly.
Yes, Representative Kelly, please go ahead.
Since I can't see any of those handouts, can I please have those emailed to me so I could look at them tonight?
Done.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have requested digital copies of everything we've received so far.
Okay. Senator Office.
And just to add on, I think we welcome those materials. We just need some lead time on having it so that we can process it and know whether it should be a public document, read it ahead of time. So if you do want us to be considering materials that you're going to bring to public testimony, get them to the chairs ahead of time, get them to LSO ahead of time, make sure that they're distributed. And that makes it a lot easier for us to be able to process it so that we can read it and understand it ahead of time. So it's not that we're obviously supportive of having those materials. We just need to make sure that it goes through the process appropriately so that the public also is capable of reviewing the same documents that we're reviewing as we're reviewing them, or our good Representative Kelly, who can't review it either because he's far away. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I do want to bring up Dr. Pikus for just a minute to clarify some information to the committee. Dr. Pikus, do you think you could come up just for a minute and clarify some information for the committee? And then we'll go right back to public comment. So you had something you wanted to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. A couple of thoughts. Like you, I haven't had a chance to fully read the handouts that you received, but I did hear the testimony that came, and I'd like to respond just briefly to a couple of things. I'm going to start with Dr. Williams' handout, and he pointed out the difference in average salaries and his concern. We did a little looking at some national data that looked at pupil-teacher ratios across the 50 states, and the NCS calculates it in a certain way, but the relative size of classes across states is going to be a general measure of what goes on. In Wyoming, that measure was 12 students per class, and in Utah, it's 22. So I must remind everybody that we've had a long day. If we can't have larger classes, it would be terrible to go from 21 to 25 in the ratio models and those things. So part of the trade-off that Utah's made is teachers have on average almost twice as many students in each class. And those numbers, for those of people who are in larger cities, we don't have 22 in our classes in some of the big cities. We always end up with more. So it's important to think about working conditions as well as salaries. And that leads into the conversation on the regional cost adjustment, which also probably has to be thought about in terms of the economic cost adjustment, which is inflation that keeps the model current. And Matt and I have been doing some calculations over the last few months, and the ECA that the legislature has approved, and Lori Taylor calculates it every year. In the last 5 years, you've actually appropriated an ECA that's been slightly cumulatively higher than what her indices would actually call for. It's that 8.5% in the last year helped a lot. So price-wise and whatnot, you've still, if you will, done a very good job, as Thury would suggest, in keeping us close to what the recalibration 5 years ago suggested. but in reality, I was deeply concerned with the way the RCA has been misconstrued today. I want to be clear that the regional cost index was calculated by Dr. Taylor. We asked her to do it because there's nobody better in the country to do it, or nobody who's done it more in more states than Dr. Taylor. The person I call when Lori says she can't do it for me is Dr. Jennifer Imazeki, who wrote another paper that we had available for everybody last time, who concluded that within the data limitations of a very small state like Wyoming, nobody could have done a better job of coming up with an RCA than Dr. Taylor. I'd also refer to all the people who've been concerned about the methodology and the way it was done. There were no secrets. There were some databases that are proprietary, so there's some limits as to what can and can't be shared. But all of her methodologies, including how it's compared to the HWI that is still used, the 2005 HWI, which is substantially out of date, is all documented in her report, which is available at the website from the meeting in October. It's part of the committee materials. It's easy to find. It has an extensive bibliography. There's no question about what she referred to, how she did it, what her theoretical backgrounds are. But then, and it's tricky because Alex gave you a bunch of tables of data and said there's a bunch of errors in it. So I'm hard pressed to know what is and isn't there and what I can and can't look at. But it's a little tricky. And so I don't want to go too far beyond my data, but I'm not sure I have any data to go beyond. So the problem in part is there was a compromise that was fashioned 20 years ago that made a lot of sense. Okay, but it really undoes sort of the purpose of an RCA today. And the idea behind a regional cost adjustment is that it takes what Dr. Stoddard estimated it should be the average salary for a teacher in an average place in Wyoming. Now, this is like way beyond. Everything's above average in Wyoming, but let's start with what's average in Wyoming, okay? And then the idea is to say wherever you live, you should have an opportunity to be able to hire the same quality of teacher with effectively the same level of resources. It costs more in some counties than it does in others. And I just want to leave out Teton for a moment because that's just harder than anything else, and it's an outlier. Campbell County tends to cost more than I don't want to pick on Niobrara either. It's the bottom, okay? We start with $70,000 as an average salary, $70,560, but then we have to adjust it for the differences in the regional costs. And that's what we do with the HWI. Now, what that would do is it would say to several of the districts, we're going to subtract something from that 70,000 every year in the model, and nobody likes that. They don't like to see it. So at the recommendation of the committee and the people and the others, we rebased it. We set the district that's the lowest, which is Niobrara County, at 90%. And so we took 90% of 70,000. That's the average that Niobrara County would get, however we do this. And then we recalculated each of the RCAs for each of the other districts to come up with an appropriate number. It should come up with exactly the same average salary for every district, either way you calculate it. There are a few minor differences that may be a little bit of rounding error. It may have to do with sort of the numbers of teachers that are actually there, but that's what it does, and theoretically that's what it works. And it's Lori who pointed that out to me, and I went and tested it and worked with her to make sure it did work. So the model is frustrating if your RCA has fluctuated, particularly if it's gone down some, but it reflects the changes in how the costs work and how the costs look. And just one last point is why we have to be careful and always use the same measure for everybody is the WCLI for Campbell County in the last release is 100. So by the WCLI cost of standards, it appears, and Matt just showed me this, Campbell County's costs are kind of average for the state, right? State of Wyoming. So we want to be clear what we're talking about, and we want to be sure we're looking at those data. And I would stand 100% behind the data Lori provided and 100% confident that you're allocating resources fairly to school districts based on her RCA. And you don't have to undo steps and lanes in your salary schedules. That's an average. Some teachers will make more, some will make less. And it's like all 49 other states do. And when they get an average teacher salary, and then they apply it to the teachers who exist in their school district. We're not asking you to do anything that nobody else doesn't do. It's really quite straightforward. Okay. It's just a change. And there'll be some pressure in different directions in some places. So I'm sorry to use your time, Mr. Chair. I felt kind of compelled to respond to what happened there.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, Mr. Pikus. A consideration as I was listening to some of the folks talk about the costs and some of the problems that they're facing with trying to be able to hire outside of the state. You know, you've got people that are competing against Utah and Colorado. So I did some quick math here, and if the one figure that was given was $69,012, compared to what Colorado is paying, and I pulled this up here, you're looking at $68,000 as a starting average salary in Colorado. And then in Utah, 60 to 69,000 is what came up. But a consideration I'm asking you, did you take into the effect of when we price, what about income tax? Because when I look at that, both of those states have income taxes. And so when you look at that, Colorado charges 4.4%. Utah charges 4.55%. That's taking over $3,000 off the base of those salaries right up there versus what Wyoming will leave in that salary because we do not have an income tax. Is that part of the equation that you have factored into this?
Mr. Co-Chair, Mr. Speaker, that's an excellent question. And when it hits me pretty hard because I just made a huge estimated tax payment to my state, which has a income tax that makes everybody else's look pretty sad if you earn a fair amount of money. However, it was 84 degrees last week in my house too. So there's trade-offs, right? It's working conditions and living conditions, and we all have our preferences. I really don't like snow, so you can't get me to Teton to live no matter what. All right, but that's again my preferences, nothing else. It's a beautiful place to visit. First of all, I want to be careful that we're talking about average salaries and not beginning salaries, because the two get conflated in the conversation. There's a lot of misunderstanding across the state right now. The 70,000 is an average. It's not a beginning. And it's a salary that some teachers will clearly make less on a salary schedule, and some will clearly make more. And that's what one would expect from an average. It should be somewhere near the middle. But
So that fits into what those average salaries are.
and I don't know the extent to which Dr. Stoddard thought about income taxes and the effect of taxes on income, because we've really used your I'm pretty sure her report says it's the salary on your contract is the best way I know how to describe it for a teacher, and not what you keep, because the problem with trying to do after tax consideration estimates is everybody's circumstance is different. I think 3 of you raised your hands that you still have children in school. So those tax deductions are different than those of you probably who didn't raise your hands, right? So everybody's tax status situation is different. But if you think about average tax rates, which is how you defined it, yeah, there's an advantage if I don't pay an income tax. I'll stop. I'm sorry.
Me. So for the members of the committee, under our agenda, we were to recess at 5. We're not going to recess at 5. We'll recess at 5:30. I want to give everyone the opportunity that I possibly can to speak. So with that being said, though, I don't want to shortchange anyone, but also remember that there are a lot of people behind you who'd like to make comments as well. So with that, thank you for your patience, and who is first? Yes, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name's Jeff Jones. I'm the superintendent at Sheridan School District Number 1. That's Tongue River and Bighorn. I have most of my comments condensed here, and I'll read those in just a minute, and it'll be less than 2 minutes. But I did want to just kind of give some background to my statements. I love that in some ways our district benefits, and in other ways not so much. And that's, I'm saying that I appreciate those things that are helping us. My point in my comments today are more about some of this comments about strategic spending. And what I mean by that, Matt from LSO said the area with the largest increase in FTE funding is the 1 FTE for summer school per 120 students, and the 1 FTE per 120 students for after-school tutors. And I want to address some things with all due respect to Dr. Pikus. I'm also a doctor, the kind that doesn't help people. And so I want to push back on the research that we've heard. I want to begin by acknowledging the intent behind the Recalibration Committee's recommendation to increase funding for after-school and summer school instruction.
Supporting students, and particularly those at risk, is a goal we all share. However, my testimony today is to urge caution and alignment with the strongest body of peer-reviewed research and what it tells us about student impact. The evidence is clear and remarkably consistent. The single greatest school-based factor influencing student achievement is the effectiveness of the classroom teacher. That's during the regular school day. While supplemental programs can provide support, they do not come close to the impact of excellent instruction delivered daily by highly effective teachers. A recent peer-reviewed study published in Frontiers in Education found a direct, statistically significant relationship between instructional quality and student achievement in core academic areas. The study concluded that investments in teacher effectiveness, how well instruction is delivered, differentiated, and adjusted to students' needs during the day, produces substantially greater impact gains than peripheral interventions. To put this into perspective with one clear data point, students taught by highly effective teachers can gain the equivalent of an additional full year of learning compared to students taught by less effective teachers within the same amount of instructional time. In contrast, the research on expanding instructional facilitators, tutors, and extending time programs shows mixed and highly variable results, particularly when these programs are scaled statewide. Their impact depends heavily on implementation quality and consistency, making them a far less reliable investment. Put simply, students who struggle do not benefit most from more school later. They benefit most from better school instruction now. That is why decades of research point to two high-leverage investments for at-risk students: recruiting, developing, and retaining outstanding teachers, and reducing class sizes so that the teachers can effectively differentiate instruction and build strong relationships. If our goal is to help at-risk students, the most responsible investment is strengthening the core instructional experience, not adding layers around it. I will finish with this. Instructional facilitators and tutors should remain supports, not substitutes for excellent classroom instruction. I respectfully urge the committee to prioritize funding decisions that align with the strongest evidence available, invest in great teachers, invest in smaller classes, invest in the instructional day where the return on investment is greatest. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Travis Pearson, I'm the chairman of Johnson County School District Number 1, Mr. Chairman and ladies and one of the board. I had just a couple of thoughts that I would like to share with you this afternoon. You asked earlier if you talk to your local school board. I brought you 4/9 of ours right here today, so everybody can raise their hand when we're done. So like you guys, we were all just crazy enough to put our name on the ballot and tell our friends and neighbors that we can make a difference. We can make a change. We can do good things for our community. And the same as all of you guys, we're taking time off of work. We're using vacation days. We're away from our family. So I wanted to start by thanking you guys. This has got to be the only committee worse than the one we typically sit on. So thank you guys all for your service, everybody. I was going to have a handout, but I'm scared to now. I just wanted to share a couple of commitments that we've made at Johnson County from our board through our whole district. We've committed to supporting every kid in every school in Johnson County. And I don't just mean the publics. I mean, we work with our pre-Ks as much as we can help, we do. We work with our Christian school. We work with the privates. We work with the kids taking homeschool. We work as best we can for every kid in our county. And that's a commitment we've taken on, the whole district's gone to. So our kids are all of our kids, not just the ones that are in our classrooms. The other one that we've committed to and bragged a little bit to several of you who can come listen to us is we're building custom reading programs for every child in the grade schools. We've got each kid getting evaluated on what they can read, what difficulty they can read, how can they sound it, can they decode and encode. We've got a lot of neat things happening in our youngest readers right now. The ones or K through 3 are really coming on, and I think that's going to continue to grow and flourish throughout the whole system. So you guys are all welcome. Anybody wants to see some really neat reading progress, come to Johnson County, we'll get you hooked up. Those are the things that I wanted to share with you. I'll pass on to the next.
Mr. Chair, committee. My name is Reed Davidson, and I stand before you with the rest of these fellas and ladies. As representatives of Johnson County, and not only are we school board trustees, but we're also parents and community members, and we are very entrenched in our community. We know the pulse of our community. As Mr. Pearson stated, we're dedicated and we're capable, and we were elected to represent the community to the best of our ability, just as you were. And if we move away from categorical grants, we're going to lose our ability to do what we were elected to do. And what I wanted to do with my time here is just elaborate on something that Travis said here and Mr. Pearson said here, and share a quick example of a scenario that's specific to our particular district and what we're able to do, and what we decided to do, and we're able to do it because of the block grant. We are being laser focused on the early stages of literacy. And we're putting a priority on being proactive rather than reactive in catching up on any deficiencies in real time. And what the block grant has allowed us to do is we chose to fund more teachers and more paras than the model suggests. And we chose to allocate resources towards the most current and proven and peer-reviewed and research-based trainings and instruction for our teachers and paras. And in turn, we can have very small reading groups that are specifically tailored to that very particular small group of needs. And we have the staff and the resources to continuously assess and adjust and move those kids around, and put them in the most appropriate group and get them moving on in their endeavors towards literacy. And as a result, we can eliminate the fix-it-later approaches like summer school and extended day. And we wouldn't be able to do any of that if we didn't have the flexibility that's granted to us through the block grant.
Chairman Salzar and committee, thank you for your time today. My name is Lynette Fox. I am currently on my second term of school board in Johnson County, Buffalo, Wyoming. I'm a lifetime resident of Wyoming and Johnson County. I am the mother of an amazing fifth grader. She goes to Cloud Peak Elementary in Buffalo. I'm a wife. I'm a 25-year small business owner, and I am deeply committed to my community. I want to just give you just a little portion of our journey. You've heard from the experts today. You've heard lots of scenarios, lots of impacts, and what it's going to do to individual districts. And so my journey as a trustee has been taking the opportunity that I've been given to educate myself from the bottom up. I knew nothing. I started out with nothing I didn't understand, and I engulfed myself in every opportunity to understand how the funding works. I jokingly say to these guys, my first funding that I approved, my first budget that I approved, I really didn't know what I was doing. Onto my 6th year, I've gained a better understanding. And so I do know the direct effect that it is doing to that the budget does do to students and to the families in our community. So as a personal goal of my own is to continue to keep learning the different effects through within the funding. I'm not going to take more of your time. I respect that you've been flexible today, Chairman, and I thank you so much. One thing that I do ask, please listen and reflect on what all these experts have shared with you today. They're the people in the room. These are the people that we want in the room. They're the ones that are fighting for our students. Our students are our customers. And so we want to do the best, and keeping autonomy to local school boards that are doing their work is something that I'm requesting of you. I hope to continue to do the best that I can for Johnson County. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Tamitha Graven. Oh, got it. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Tamitha Graven. I have lived in Wyoming for 30 years. I raised two girls that went through the school system. I'm a school board member, a business owner of 25 years. And I'm sharing these thoughts from a systems and planning perspective. That's what I do, with a goal of clarity, simplicity, and long-term stability. And I want to address the block grants. So on the block grants, and I love what this gentleman said here about local. So I want to just go a little bit further on that. So I keep coming back to that idea that a strong structure at a state level paired with the flexibility at the local level produces better outcomes, right? They do. Good systems and efficiencies are built from the top down. When you look at like how a CEO, and I would consider you guys that right now, you guys are making decisions. It's like, how can we do this part better? Because it's all on trust and how people are spending their money. So every community is different, and our districts need room to meet those unique needs, right? So that flexibility works best when it's supported by clear systems, shared training, simple budgeting frameworks, and consistent accountability measures help our school boards and administrators steward funds responsibly while working together as a more unified state. So my suggestion, just so that, because the block grants are so important to us, that maybe taking some successful models around the state that's doing things really well, because I know that some haven't, but there's a lot that are doing things right. And it's like, how do we create a model that we can begin to train these school districts how to do things right, to be more efficient with their money? I mean, we all need to be educated and do things better, but how can we start from the top down so that we are good stewards of our finances and running better budgets and things like that, so we can meet the needs of our communities? So I do have one other thing, but I don't need to. No. Okay. I did want to talk also about the classroom size, and this is just a thought with this. Are we like stuck on doing this right now, like going from 1 to 25? Because I see it as a full-time employee and the classroom size, and natural attrition happens at 5 to 6% per year. We lose about 5 to 6 teachers per year, but could we maybe expand that model to adapt to that? I mean, it's just a thought on that. And then also, this is something that we do in our business all the time. It's like, we have people that are $20 tasks, $10 tasks, $50 tasks, $100 tasks. So how can we support what's happening in our classrooms? We know if we have to go to bigger sizes, our teachers need help. I mean, things have changed since COVID. Behaviors have changed. We have a lot of special needs that are in the class, and it's hard to, for teachers to focus on getting what needs to be done. So it's like, I love that you guys are adding more support help in the classrooms, because I think it makes it more of an efficient system if we do have to go to larger classrooms. But I hope we keep them smaller, because I think they're better.
Thank you so
But
much for your
yes.
testimony. Appreciate it. Questions? Yes, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, just a comment. Thank you for driving all the way down from Buffalo, Wyoming. It's a long haul. Appreciate that. I've often said that I was as a former educator, I hope there's a special place in heaven for teachers. They deserve to be up there. But I believe school board members need to be right with them, because that could possibly be the worst job, even worse than this, because you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I appreciate those of you that have chosen to serve and to do the job you're doing. And I just would say, unless you're a cheerleader advisor, that could possibly be worse than a school board member. But thank you for coming and thank you for your efforts.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thank all of you. Thanks. I'd like to take one or two online folks right now. For those, please fill these chairs. We'll get to you. But do we have one or two that we could take public comment on?
Mr. Chairman, I give them a second, see if any of them would like to use the raise hand.
Okay.
There's nothing yet. Okay, here we go. We got a couple. Alrighty. I've got Amanda and Megan joining the room. We'll start with Amanda and then go
Okay.
to Megan.
Welcome, Amanda. Please go ahead. We're all listening to your comments.
Sorry, I was talking and did not see I needed to unmute. Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Senator Salazar and members of the committee. My name is Amanda Eason, and I am the business manager at Fremont County School District number 2 in DuBois, Wyoming. My current ADM
hello
is
there.
100. Hello. Sorry, I'm reading so that I can go very quickly. My current ADM is 192 students, and we have added about 51 students over the last 10 years. I'm grateful for the conversation today and learning that we've had on both sides of the topics. I want to clarify that school districts participating in WISBATE, WEPT, and the state health insurance plan all operate self-funded health plans. None of these programs is a side operation. There are essential mechanisms for providing health insurance while controlling costs and remaining responsive to the needs of the insured. My district is currently insured with WISBATE, so I'm going to focus on WISBATE because that's what I know. Each WISBATE district has a voting representative on the board, which meets regularly to shape plan design and services. This local control has been invaluable to my school district, specifically here in DuBois, but I know all the school districts probably feel the same way. But that's why I feel so strongly about this issue. And I just want to share a couple of examples of how this has impacted our communities and our school district employees. Last year, WISBATE added a new service called Revive, which is a subscription type program that is, from my understanding, is on the outside of our plan and offers access to online urgent care, primary care, mental health visits, weight loss, and wellness support, and medications. These services improve long-term health outcomes, reduce chronic conditions, and help employees remain healthy, engaged, and productive. Life can be hard, and support like this allows employees to be more present, resilient, and effective, especially in rural communities like DuBois, where the nearest therapist is more than 1.25 hours away. That's one way. Access to physical therapy, a second service. Access to physical therapy is a significant challenge across the state. When the local provider left DuBois a few years ago, employees had to drive, again, 1.25 hours one way, 1 to 3 times a week just to attend physical therapy. This results in lost work time, additional substitute costs, and significant strain on both employees and the school district. WISBATE rose to the challenge and added Hinge Health this last year, which is a virtual physical therapy platform for joint, back, and muscle pain. While it doesn't replace in-person care, it provides meaningful support for employees who otherwise would go without therapy, reducing work disruption and stress. If moving to the state plan, it would be good to be able for schools to designate if the employees would work 20 or 30 hours to be enrolled. My district currently insures employees working at 30 hours a week or more. Lowering the eligibility threshold to 20 hours would require payroll departments to more closely monitor substitutes and part-time staff, creating additional workload and compliance challenges across all districts. And with our EB model, we're actually cutting resources to the central office, which impacts that. So as an example, at Fremont 2, substitutes in my district can work up to 29 hours a week. This means I don't have to track hours as long as all of my subs work only 20 hours a week or less. If the hours were lessened to 20, I would have one of two choices. I either track everyone and enroll and then unenroll people as they either work 20 hours or they don't. Or I would lessen sub hours to a max of 19 hours when I'm already in a substitute shortage in my community. So this change would create major staffing challenges and would have a significant negative impact on all small and rural school districts. There's also a concern, and we heard about this earlier, that consolidating all school districts into a single state plan administered by Cigna could increase costs and limit healthcare competition across the state, further restricting provider options in Wyoming. Adding participants to the state plan does not automatically guarantee savings. Cooperative pools like WisBait WEPT allow districts to manage risk, preventing sudden cost spikes and ensuring long-term stability. The last thing about health insurance, the debate isn't about operating a self-funded plan. We're all already doing that. It's about governance, capacity, and outcomes. And I would strongly encourage the legislature to pursue further study before voting on any new health insurance legislation. This would include an evaluation of potential negative impacts on healthcare competition and access within Wyoming, a comprehensive cost analysis of moving school districts to the state plan. I would agree with Mr. Flett from Natrona County, who we heard from earlier, to conduct a cost analysis district by district. This would give us time to understand the changes and how it would impact us directly. And a survey of current state employee satisfaction with the state health plan, including a review of how plan decisions are made and offers additional medical support in the two examples I provided earlier to the needs of those insured, similar to the member-driven approach, which is used by WisBait. A second just little thing quick about, I just want to address the prohibition on using funds for capital construction or major maintenance. Every community is different, of course, and in Du Bois, we have unique needs. We do not plan to put in a pool. We have funds within our special depreciation funds that we use for essential local priorities, such as covering half the cost of a generator so the school can stay operational during power outages, renovating or replacing teacherages to address housing shortages, which are a significant issue in Du Bois, or purchasing a school bus or Suburban up front and waiting for the reimbursement to come through. In terms of our teacherages, my school district, I have 2 houses and a set of 4 apartments for teacherages, and they are all full all the time because there's just not enough housing in Du Bois. But we run them like a business, and for the most part, they maintain themselves at this point. We've only used our major maintenance funds to maintain enhancements connected to the school district. We do not use it for the teacherages. So my question for you guys is, where is the balance? And I'm glad I'm not sitting in your seat having to do that. I do that at my city council. I don't do that for the legislature. But this policy, some of these policies could inadvertently hurt all schools that rely on flexibility to meet essential needs. Thank you very much, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Amanda. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do we have one more before I start going back to the
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I forgot how to operate my mic for a second. Yep, we've got one more in the room.
and who is this?
Megan Edmonds.
Okay, Megan, please, if you can hear me, go forward, and we'd love to hear your comments.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As she said, my name is Megan Edmonds, and I have been a Wyoming educator for 19 years. In that time, I've served as an elementary teacher and an instructional facilitator, but I'm currently teaching 3rd grade in Sheridan, Wyoming. And I have 2 daughters who are a 5th grader and an 8th grader. And I'm really speaking here today as a teacher and a parent. I'm going to echo much of what we heard from Jeff Jones. I'm deeply concerned about the proposed funding changes and the negative impact I feel they'll have on student learning. As Mr. Jones said, in education, we know that the most important factor in a child's learning is the teacher in the classroom and that teacher's ability to build relationships with students and spend time with students. And while I appreciate the intent to invest in our schools, the proposed distribution of funds is misguided. Quality Tier 1 classroom instruction, the time every student spends with their teacher during the school day, has to be our priority. It's my understanding that the proposed budget seeks to increase class sizes while shifting funds to tier 2 programs like summer school. And this is counterintuitive for a couple of reasons. The first being achievement gaps. In 2009, a meta-analysis was done by Shin and Chung, and it specifically found that reducing class size had a significant positive impact on student achievement. And most importantly, their research showed that smaller class sizes were especially vital for minority and disadvantaged students. So increasing class sizes risks leaving our most vulnerable students behind. Studies also show to the point of having a teacher and an aide in the classroom that with a larger number of students that smaller classrooms with one teacher are more effective than larger classrooms with multiple teachers or a teacher and an aide. The second reason I feel that this is misguided is that it would be ineffective spending, as was cited earlier. Research by John Hattie shows that tier 2 interventions like summer school and after school programs don't have the same net positive impact on learning as high quality classroom instruction. So we should not be defunding our most important instructional opportunity as teachers to overfund programs that research shows are less effective. Additionally, these are programs that I can tell you as a teacher, we historically have struggled to get our most at-risk students to attend. We need to meet our kids' needs during the school day when we have them. I'm also very concerned about the potential loss of over 600 core teaching positions if the class size increases in past. These are 600 residents and taxpayers and our neighbors who will be forced to look for work elsewhere. It doesn't seem to me to be what's best for Wyoming students. It's not what's best for Wyoming teachers. And it's not just a budget shift, it's a direct blow to our communities and the quality of our workforce. So I really urge the committee to prioritize tier 1 classroom funding to keep our classes small and our teachers in Wyoming, because our students deserve the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions? Okay, thank you so much. So it's 5 o'clock. Our agenda is that we were to recess, but we're not going to. We'll do another 30 minutes of public comment, but it's my intent to recess at 5:30. So having said that, if you can keep your comments concise, I can get through as many people who we work for as possible. And so with that, who's first? Let's start over here, ma'am.
Okay. I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jane Beach, and I am here today to speak in support of my colleagues, my students, and the future of Wyoming's children. I'm an educator in Cheyenne, and I'm also a parent of a child who is in high school in Cheyenne. I love what I do, but I must be clear, I am not a mental health professional. The current reality that we are seeing is an unprecedented rise in disruptive behaviors, not just nationally, but right here in our own Wyoming classrooms. We are seeing students struggle with deep-seated mental health issues and serious behavioral disorders that require immediate professional intervention. Without these services, these children face possible depression, anxiety, and worsening behavioral cycles. Our world has changed. Family dynamics, financial instability, and the lack of affordable health care are weighing on our students. We don't always know what happens behind closed doors. There may be grief, substance abuse, or the instability of a fractured home. The data tells us a sobering story. 1 in 6 youths experience a mental health disorder each year, and Wyoming's suicide rate for 15 to 19-year-olds is more than double the national average. Some families cannot afford private practice mental health services. Our children are carrying these heavy burdens into the classroom every single morning. Some students are taking medications. In some cases, parents don't follow the doctor's recommendations, but some struggle to maintain medication schedules and they lack the tools to manage behavior at home. Parents may not know the effects of medication and need more guidance. Certified mental health professionals are needed not only to help the children in our schools, but to help guide parents with challenging behaviors at home. Public education exists to help children become successful members in society, but currently teachers are being asked to do more than teach. We are being asked to be social workers, therapists, and surrogate parents. Teachers are not trained or certified to manage severe clinical outbursts, yet we are the first responders in these crises. When a student's behavior explodes, the entire educational system process stops. To keep everyone safe, we often have to evacuate the rest of the class. I have seen the aftermath personally firsthand. A second grade classroom in my school was destroyed by a single student with anger control issues. Chairs were thrown, desks overturned, equipment ruined, and the teacher's personal belongings destroyed. It took 8 teachers to help put that classroom back together. Recently, I had to move my class out of our classroom because of a student triggered just by a simple request to stop humming began a screaming physical outburst. Immediate help was needed in both incidents by a highly qualified mental health professional. Instead, both of these cases, the classroom teachers and the administrator were the only ones able to respond. Incidents like these are happening now. This is not an emerging problem, and there's no reason not to provide resources to all K through 12 students in all the schools. In those moments, everyone loses. The students in crisis, they lose their dignity and their access to immediate help. The rest of the class loses their sense of safety and hours of vital instructional time. The neighboring classes are disrupted. Mental health professionals would also be able to provide follow-up measures for the student and for the parents so they can help with these, follow with these outbursts. Special education students can also have disruptive behaviors due to their diagnoses and outside factors. For these students, mental health services are not an extra. They are an essential component of their individualized education program that allows them to access their education. We know what success looks like. A few years ago, a military family from F.E. Warren Air Force Base told our school board they were so impressed by the special education services their child received in Cheyenne that they specifically requested a transfer back here to Cheyenne. This is the standard we should strive for. But with nationwide and statewide budget cuts along with rising needs, that standard is slipping. Mental health services are not a luxury for special education. They are a fundamental requirement for academic success. Mental health resources need to be available to all students in the general education classroom and in special education. I'm asking this committee to increase funding for behavioral health in our K through 12 public schools, fulfilling the requirements set forth in the Wyoming State Constitution. Do not delay this funding any further. Placing qualified professionals in every building is not just a budget line item, it is a lifeline. It supports parents, protects teachers, and most importantly, it gives our children the tools they need to grow into healthy, successful adults. Let teachers teach, let professionals heal. Let's give our students the support they deserve. And thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, my name is Zach Stevenson. I came all the way from Big Piney. It was much colder there this morning when I left, so hopefully it's warm on my way back. Yeah. I've been in Wyoming for about 16, 18 years now. So I'm a first-time attendee, long-time suffragette. I came from Seoul, South Korea, taught English over there. And in a small district like Big Piney, we really struggle to get people there. We are a long way from everything. I lived closer to a Wendy's and a Costco in Seoul, South Korea than I do now. And so probably one of the biggest things that we're finding, and I'm on most of the hiring committees, is that we get 1, maybe 2 applicants for a position. It took us 2 years to fill a superintendent position. And so when we're looking at all these funding models to help bring young people in and to help them stay, the compensation is a key point to that. We're constantly trying to keep longevity. Burnout is real. As the person before me spoke, there's a lot of emotional and mental labor that goes into just keeping a classroom running. And those outbursts put a huge kink in that. And a lot of the people burn out early. We need to create competitive pull in Wyoming. We need to bring people in through that compensation package. Robust and direct compensation and benefits packages for all district employees. In my district, we actually offer it to bus drivers, the insurance package to bus drivers, to our paraeducators. Pretty much everyone gets it, and we budget for that accordingly because we have such a hard time keeping people there. And compensation, I'm sorry, is not an externality to working conditions and workplace benefits. That's part of it. And as we go forward, we don't need things, we need people. people are the important thing. When I was looking over like how I wanted to like do this, if I wanted to bludgeon you with more studies and facts and things like that, I decided to go with ethos instead and say we're people, and in Wyoming we need people. Humans fuel our communities, and education fuels our communities, and humans fuel education. And so the more people we have in the building with the skills to help those individuals in need that have those specialty skills, the better we do. And all the students learn at that high rate, which then fuels the communities to improve, and everything gets better when that happens. And our whole community right now is centered around our education. Like our district probably is, I think last I saw about 60% of the total workforce in our city, because we're mildly depressed right now. To end that, the concerns about the infrastructure from our district office, from our admin, was just, can the state handle that? Is the infrastructure for that able to handle that influx of people? Overall, even though education is a passion for people who are human focused, we deserve to be fairly and competitively compensated for our desire to improve and fuel our communities. That's all I got. Thank you.
You appreciate you coming a long way to give your testimony. Thank you. Any questions? Welcome, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I had some talking points at the beginning of today, and then I used kind of what I heard today to just speak from my heart. So that's what I'm doing. Hopefully it will make sense to all of you. I've had the pleasure over the 25-year teaching career to work in 2 blue ribbon awarded schools, and also currently work in a school that's been recognized as a model PLC school. I couldn't do it without my team, and my team includes social workers, counselors, SROs. So at the beginning of 30 years ago, when I moved to Wyoming, I was a parent volunteer in the schools, and had advanced degrees, decided from being a volunteer that I was passionate about learning and teaching in Wyoming. I raised 3 kids that went through the school systems here. My last ones are getting a doctorate and master's at UW. So I'm passionate about what happens in Wyoming, and couldn't have been as successful with my kids and raising my family without the state backing my family. So I appreciate that. And I know that everyone here today has the best of intentions to do what's right for Wyoming. So I'm here to speak for my teams. I trust most my teaching partners, my building supervisor, my administrator, and then district admin and my board. I don't see much district admin or board members come through my hallways. And I'm thankful that you guys have spoken to board members where you live and reached out. I would encourage you to keep doing that. And I also want to welcome you into the schools. Come sub for a day, maybe 2 days, maybe a week, to get a view of what really happens in the schools. I wouldn't want to work anywhere else. And what makes a difference for me and my family is my insurance coverage. So as you talk here today, and I heard somebody say, like, why are we stuck in the whatever weeds? Didn't say that, but, you know, wrapped up in this discussion about insurance. It's because it is deeply personal to me. It's what keeps me in the classroom. Local decision makers have identified what is best for our community. With all due respect, I don't know that the state plan meets the needs of my local community. I know I was on the committee for my district when we reviewed the possible insurance plans and what they do for our community. It was quite clear that the plan that we chose was best for us and our community. At that time, it was considered to go into the state insurance group. We decided that was not for us, and we should have the right to do that. So I implore you, in your best intention mindset, to allow local decisions to stay local. you might inform, you might give funding and then some kind of structure or guidelines to how that money is spent, but allow the school boards and the teachers and the administrators to do what is best for the community. So I ask you to please consider studying. If you want to continue to consider the state plan for insurance, please study that and study it closely, because that's going to be money out of the teacher pockets. And I am convinced it will cost more, because we have looked at it closely. Local government, local decision makers don't want things to cost more. We've looked at it closely, and please respect that. If you want to study that, please. We don't need to study the importance of nurses. We don't need to study the importance of SROs. We see the difference that they make every day. Come talk to the teachers in the classroom. I'm passionate about learning, and I just ask that you allow local control. Thank you. I'll take questions if you want.
And I bet you do a good job at that too. Appreciate your comments. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting, sir.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwayne Hagan. I'm with Park 16 trustee, board trustee. Just a little bit of my background. I started out in a country school, 7 kids in the school, and 2 of my brother and I. That was in North Dakota. And they say the 2 best things that come out of North Dakota is Highway 94 East and Highway 94 West. So I got an opportunity to go to a bigger school, and that was Hudson. Okay. Okay. So I have learned the value of small schools. My son went to Valley School. We had a ranch on the South Fork out of Cody. He went to Valley School, which was like 32 miles or 33 miles west of Cody. When we sold that ranch and moved to the Laramie Peak area, my daughter started her school at the White School, which is about 20 miles southwest of Douglas. Okay. So when we finally moved to Matitsi, she was in middle school then. And Matitsi was a dream school to us. Okay. That's why I'm a trustee there. I want my kids, she graduated from Matitsi. I got grandkids that have graduated from Matitsi. I've got great grandkids that are going to be going to Matitsi. So it's very important to me that our school stays a school. And I just want to bring up a couple of stories about how special Matitsi is. And a side benefit, and I'm very proud of the academic achievements our school has done. But a side benefit is sports. Anybody in our school that wants to play sports gets to play sports. Okay. And they're all coached the same. It doesn't make any difference how good they are. They all get the same coaching. And a good example is we had a girl, a 5th grader, Alice, who had never played basketball, decided to play middle school girls basketball. And I'm kind of biased, but my daughter is the coach for the middle school. And went through the whole season. And I think it was the last game or next to the last game. Alice finally made her first basket. You would have thought in the gym that we won the state championship. Everybody was on their feet, screaming, yelling. And I was looking at her parents. The feeling was tremendous. So, you got to think about those kinds of things, because most kids don't get that opportunity in a bigger school. It's just a select few. Okay. But being able to do that is pretty special. Another, quick story. The governor visited our school last spring, and the administration or none of the board members or the teachers showed our governor through the school. All of our students did. And they explained everything that was going on. Okay. When we got to the ag department, one of our ag students challenged the governor to a welding contest. Okay. Which he decided to do. And in his defense, he probably hasn't welded for the last few years, but
I really do not want to interrupt you. Story.
but he did come in second. But just those kids and we, I watched the whole thing and never said anything at all when we were going through. And I could tell he was so impressed with the way our students handled that tour. And I just think those kind of opportunities they just don't come that often. Now, I know you got a lot of other people, but if anybody wants to hear more small school stories, I'll be available tomorrow during the break.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome
much.
to look me up and I'll fill you in. Thank you very much.
No problem. Appreciate questions. So it's 5:20. I have 10 more minutes. I'd like to give at least 2 more people an opportunity. Ma'am, let's start with you. And none of you have spoken yet before. Okay, good. I think we're going to probably end it with you folks up there. So please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Alex Petrino. I'm a school board trustee in Natrona County. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district, but I'm here today speaking as the president of the Wyoming Counseling Association and on behalf of licensed professional counselors in the state. I want to speak clearly about what the 93% of students that attend public school in Wyoming need and what Wyoming is constitutionally required to provide. Fully funding education doesn't just mean paying for buildings and basic instruction. It means funding the full system of supports that allow students to show up, stay regulated, and learn. Because the truth is, kids can't learn if they're not okay. And I need to say this plainly, our kids are suffering now, our kids are dying now, and they need support now. Educators, counselors, and school teams are not asking for extras. They're asking for basic capacity. They want someone to respond when a student is suicidal. They want someone to respond when a student is escalating. And they want someone to support the kids before they hit their breaking point. And yet this committee is talking about taking away the very basic support that the students need and where they spend most of their day. This is not recalibration, that's destabilization. And here's the added problem. While you're considering cuts to school-based supports, you're considering cuts to the Department of Health budget as well, putting even more pressure on the community mental health system. This very system the schools rely on when the students' needs carry beyond the school doors. You cannot cut school mental health and cut community mental health and expect families to somehow absorb the impact. They can't, and neither can our educators. Cuts don't reduce needs, cuts reduce access, and cuts increase crisis. If you move forward without funding the supports that students need, the damage will be immediate and it will be real. More lost instructional time, more emergencies, more behavioral crises, more educator burnout, and more communities overwhelmed. We need to stop pretending that these supports are optional. They are not. They are a part of what it means to provide a real education in the era that we live in, one that is accessible, safe, and functional for Wyoming kids. I encourage you to listen to the professionals that are sitting before you today that actually do this work day in and day out. And don't kick this can down the road. You don't need to continue to study it. You have all the data that you need. It does not benefit Wyoming to delay this 12 months when you could fully fund what you were supposed to and prevent further loss of life for our students. Wyoming has the 3rd highest suicide rate in the nation. If this committee doesn't fund school-based mental health supports, the most consistent point of access for 93% of students in Wyoming, it should be prepared to be held accountable for the real world consequences of that decision. I'll stand for questions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Petrino, so do you think that the EB model recommendation by our consultants is sufficient for those supports?
I'm going to kick that back to you, actually, as a question. Excuse me. Sorry, Chairman, Representative. Do you think it's consistent or do you think it's acceptable? You have people here before you that are saying they need support. You have teachers saying we need support, we need help. Whatever the consultants say is what the consultants say, but we are here saying we need more. We need help. So I'm going to kick that question back to you. Do you think it's sufficient?
So, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I'm not going to make it back and forth. I'm just going to say that, you know, we have the bill draft, which doesn't match the EB model. But the EB model is more than what we currently have now. So we'll definitely be interested in hearing more about what the right number is if you want to bring it to us at some point while we keep moving through the session. Thanks.
Thank you again for your comments. Please.
Hi, my name is Lauren Hewlett-White. I am a music teacher over in Laramie, Wyoming. I teach at Linford Elementary School, but I also teach at Centennial and Harmony Rural Elementary Schools. So I am a 5th generation Wyomingite. My great-great-grandfather 6 years ago was inducted into the Wyoming Cowboys, not Go Pokes, but Wyoming Cowboys Hall of Fame, and I would like to keep my family here. The things that are preventing us from doing those things include the cuts to our health care. I am also sharing guardianship with my family and with my parents of my little sister with multiple disabilities. The cuts that are being proposed would not have allowed us to be able to give her the care that we need. Please think about Wyoming families and the effect that these have on all of us, and especially for those of us that need more care. My mother is also a breast cancer survivor. She had to go out of state for a lot of her care for severe needs. My sister, 80% of her medical staff is out of state because we now no longer have specialists that can treat her. This is a real problem, not just with education in the state, but also with medical need and being a medical desert currently. That also has to do with OBGYN care currently. We have many educators in this state that are looking to start families that cannot currently safely, both with the funding model that would be proposed and because there are not people nearby. If they were to have any sort of emergency during any of their term, they would not be able to get the health care that they needed to be safe. Those are very real realities that a lot of these educators are facing. Finally, a lot of these cuts, and especially the cuts, I know you are proposing technically an increase in salary average, but with the premium increase as well, that's not much of a salary increase that a lot of our educators see, and especially what our new educators see. Just for music educators throughout the state that have come out of the University of Wyoming in the last 5 years, within their first year of teaching, we see a reduction in about 30% of those people. Since 2020, over 50% of those individuals have left the state, and we have now had to have retired music educators come back to teach because we cannot fill those positions. Please consider increasing the salary. Please consider getting rid of the premium increases and just allowing districts to do what's best for their individuals. Really quickly, I also want to just state for the record, earlier, Chair, you asked about who on the committee had reached out to their local school districts. And we have a member from the Albany County School District here who has never seen Education Chair, Representative Andrew, in our school district school board meetings. All of the public educators here from Albany County School District 1 have never seen you step foot in our buildings. You're invited to come join us. Have fun. Please do. And please listen to your constituents because we're here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any questions?
No, it's not. Thank you.
Please, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm not here just as an educator or a product of Wyoming public education or as a parent of Wyoming public school graduates, but as someone who shows up every day for the Wyoming kids. While we've talked a lot about money today, it's important to remember that we're actually talking about people's lives and their livelihood. I love my students. I love public education. I'm proud to serve my community. but the current recalibration proposal threatens the very foundation of what we do. Teachers aren't fooled. We see the hidden trade-off buried in this plan. Yes, the salaries are adjusted towards market, but that gain disappears when the proposal simultaneously raises class sizes and cuts funded teacher positions. Larger classes are not a solution. They harm students, especially the ones who need us most, and they push more educators out of the field. We also see the intentional decision to leave critical support unfunded. School counselors, mental health professionals, school nutrition, SROs, and safety supports, one-to-one student technologies. These aren't luxuries, they're essential for safe, healthy, learning-ready kids. Potentially leaving them unfunded already forces districts to cannibalize what they already have as a tight budget, and students pay the price. And the most alarming piece is mandating that all district employees move to the state health insurance plan, stripping districts of local control, pushing hundreds of dollars in extra monthly costs onto staff. Most of our classified staff earn wages less than our fast food workers. It means they are helping students who make more than them. Increasing their costs will drive them out, and our schools cannot function without them. In short, this proposal pretends to invest in education while quietly dismantling the structures that keep Wyoming schools functioning. Teachers will always give our best to our students, but we cannot do that if the state undermines the system we're working in. I urge you to oppose any proposal that raises class sizes, mandates participation in state health insurance, recapture district funds such as the reserves or interest earnings, strips funding from counseling, mental health, nutrition, safety, or technology. And I urge you to support a plan that truly values Wyoming students, teachers, and the future of our public schools, not one that shifts costs, hides cuts, and destabilizes our classrooms. Please stand with the people who show up every day for Wyoming children. We're asking you for your support because our students deserve better.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to end it with these three. So questions? Any questions? You're the last one of the day then. So
Mr.
take it away.
Co-Chair, members of the committee, thank you. I've got two really quick ones, and if I get through those quick enough, I've got a third. So I'd like to start by talking about teacher salaries. The discussion earlier, we were starting to compare, Utah salaries, they're this, Colorado salaries, they're this. Well, but there's taxes. Well, I can simplify all this for you. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was not uncommon for us to get 100 out-of-state applicants. We no longer get those applicants. So I think that probably in a real world measure gives us a better idea of our salaries compared to theirs. We were attracting the best and brightest from the entire region. That's what helped us to make the achievements that we have, because as you have heard from others, the absolute most essential thing to student success is the quality of the classroom teacher. With regards to enhancements, if I understand the text of the bill correctly, and I'm not sure that it was talked about it in this way, but if I understand it right, we will not be able to use 10% money for the enhancements that we currently have. I'd like to just let you know what those are. We have an auxiliary gym, which if you're a 3A school, it is in order to run freshman, junior high, or excuse me, JV and varsity squads all at the same time, you have to have two gyms. There's literally logistically speaking, there's no other way. We've increased the size.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to point out that isn't accurate. And I know that we were talking about it earlier, but just to clarify, the 10% major maintenance for enhancements is still in place. I was actually asking about above and beyond that 10%.
Perfect. I'll stop talking about that and get right to the
I figured you'd want to get to the other bits. Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll give you one more minute here.
Okay, with regards to going categorical on the instructional. So I know I spoke to keeping the block grant whole earlier. I'm going to just tell you very quickly what our instructional program looks like. We have a counselor in every elementary. We have additional nursing support for all of our elementaries. We have an army of paraprofessionals that we utilize. For the one tutor that I know you will be funding, we can hire 5 paraprofessionals. That's 5 more bodies to help us do when we have high quality tier 1 instruction, and then we have high quality assessment, and then we break them into small groups, and we either intervene for students who didn't get it, or we enhance for those who did. That takes bodies. That is all available research will tell you that is the way to get students across the finish line. I am not catastrophizing. If you go categorical on this, that's a wrecking ball to the instructional system that we currently have. And I just want to tell you that as a high achieving district who gets we're 90% plus graduation rate every year, that starts in the elementary. That starts with teaching kids how to read at grade level by the time they reach third grade. We cannot do that if you go categorical on the instructional. I get the intent. I know for you, you're looking at it on the other side saying, well, we just don't want you spending that money on other things. Well, sometimes those other things are what works. We will not be able to buy those paras, which I told you earlier today. We put a lot of training effort into making them high quality instructional staff. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Any questions? So let me just make a couple comments. First of all, I did my best today to get as many public comments in. And secondly, as I mentioned before, some of us actually have kids in schools. I have a teenager. Others do. We care about those kids. We care about the friends of our kids. We actually have a member on this committee who's married to a school board member. This is not an easy job, but no one forced us to be here. I can assure you, having worked with these folks, that we do care. We do care. Tomorrow we will pick it up again. There will be more public testimony available tomorrow. I want to thank all of you who did give public testimony today. You have before us suits in front of you. I know that that isn't always easy, but I've tried my best to make it comfortable for you. And I look forward, the committee looks forward to seeing you tomorrow for additional public testimony. And I thank you. And Mr. Co-Chair, I'll give you an opportunity. Do you have any comments before we recess till tomorrow?
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you.